A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
So long as these problems are not solved, so long as ignorance and poverty remain on earth, these words cannot be useless.
These words set forth the soul and spirit of one of the world's great literary masterpieces, Les Miserables. Out of the depth of his pity for suffering mankind, Victor Hugo drew a compelling story, one that will live so long as bewildered humanity shall continue to grope toward the light. Tonight, WOR and the Mutual Network bring you the first of 7 broadcasts based on this great novel. Each episode will depict some vital development in the epic of Jean Valjean. Orson Welles, distinguished young author, director, and actor, has assembled a notable cast and offers an interpretation created specifically for radio presentation. Mr. Welles will play the role of Jean Valjean, and those sections of the book itself, which in running narrative bind together the dramatic episodes, will also be read by him. Les Miserables begins. Part 1. The episode which is called The Bishop.
An hour before sundown, on the evening of a day in the beginning of October, 1815, a man traveling on foot was seen entering the little town of D. Nobody knew him. He looked ragged and mean. He must have come far that day, for he looked weary. The traveler went first to the mayor's office with his passport, and then turned his steps toward the inn.
A man who wants food and a bed.
One moment, monsieur.
Good evening. Is dinner ready?
Monsieur, I'm sorry. I cannot receive you.
Are you afraid I won't pay you? I have money. I'll pay in advance.
I have no room.
Well, then, put me in the stable. I'll pay you.
I'm sorry.
Well, the attic or a corner of the kitchen. I must have lodging. We'll see after dinner.
I can't give you dinner.
But I'm hungry. I've been walking since sunrise. 12 leagues. I'm hungry.
Get out.
What do you mean?
You heard me. Get out.
But I don't understand.
Monsieur, I suspected something when I saw you go into the mayor's office. So I sent my boy across to find out. Monsieur, shall I tell you your name?
Oh. So you know. The traveler looked at the innkeeper, bowed his head, picked up his knapsack, and went off down the street. If he had turned, he would have seen the innkeeper in his doorway, pointing him out as he went, to the guests of the inn and to the passers-by. Night came on. It had begun to rain. He passed the prison.
Mr. Turnkey! Mr. Turnkey!
Well, what is it?
Mr. Turnkey, your pardon. Will you let me stay here tonight?
This is a jail, not a tavern. Get yourself arrested.
The traveler did not know the streets. He walked at random. He came to the prefecture, and then to the seminary. As he passed the cathedral square, he shook his fist at the church. Then he stopped at a stone bench in the Bishop's Street and lay down there, hoping for sleep. Who was this man? He was a criminal, and he had paid for his crime. He was an ex-convict. He was tried 19 years before, in 1796.
My name is Jean Valjean.
Prisoner, you are accused of burglary. Have you nothing to say?
Yes, Excellency. I was hungry.
It is not our concern, prisoner. Proof, in fact, of your guilt is not altered by the circumstance of your stomach.
Excellency, I was very hungry. My name is Jean Valjean, Excellency. I come from Brie. My father and mother are both dead, and my sister's husband is dead, too, so she lives with me at Faverolles. She and her little ones. They are hungry, too. Excellency, I'm a pruner at Faverolles, and in the pruning season I earn 18 sous a day. And that's all. It's very hard, Excellency. It's a very hard winter. There's no work, and there's no bread. No bread at all. Just no bread, Excellency. None. And I can't find any work. And they're all hungry, Excellency. More hungry than me, much. The 7 little ones. And no bread in the house.
Prisoner, you were apprehended by police officers in the possession of stolen property. This court has reviewed the charge, and here finds proven finally against the prisoner the crime for which he is on trial, namely the burglary of 1 loaf of bread.
Excellency, what does that mean?
It means, prisoner, you're a thief. The court finds you guilty.
I didn't know I was a thief.
Jean Valjean, you are sentenced to 5 years in the galleys.
The galleys. 5 years at the oar of a prison ship. The terms of the code were explicit. 5 years in torment. On the 22nd of April, 1797, a great chain was riveted, and Jean Valjean was a part of this chain. He was no longer Jean Valjean. He was 24,601. What had become of the sister? What became of the 7 children? Who cared about that? What becomes of the leaves of the young tree when it's sawed at the trunk? And all this time, Jean Valjean talked little, and he never laughed. When he left the galleys, he had not shed a tear for 19 years. 19 long years. For near the end of his 4th year in the prison ship, Jean Valjean escaped. On the evening of the 2nd day, he was retaken.
Number 24601, for attempted escape. The prisoner's sentence extended. 3 years.
3 years, which made 8. The 6th year.
24599.
Here.
24600.
Here.
24601. 24601. 24601. 24601 is not present.
The prisoner has escaped. Fire the alarm cannon.
That night they found him. He resisted the galley guard.
Escape and resistance. Under provisions in the special code, the prisoner's sentence extended. 5 years. 2 with a double chain.
5 years, which made 13. The 10th year.
Attempted escape. The prisoner's sentence extended. 3 years.
3 years, which made 16. The 13th year.
Attempted escape. Retaken after an absence of 4 hours. The prisoner's sentence extended. 3 years.
3 years for 4 hours, which made 19. In October 1815, Jean Valjean was set free. He had entered in 1796 for having taken a loaf of bread. The rain fell heavily, and Jean Valjean was cold on the stone bench. Just then, a woman came out of the church and saw him lying there in the dark.
My friend, what are you doing?
You see what I'm doing. I'm going to sleep.
Why don't you go to the inn?
I have no money.
You can't pass the night in the rain. Have you knocked at every door?
Yes.
Have you knocked at that one there?
No.
Knock there.
And she pointed to a little low house on the other side of the square. It was the palace of the bishop. This first part of our story is concerned with two people. One of them is Jean Valjean, and the other is Charles Francois Bienvenu Muriel, called Monseigneur Bienvenu, who was the Bishop of D. We must pause to examine this Bishop of D in order to understand what is to follow. One day, he preached this sermon in the cathedral.
My very dear brethren, there are in France 346,000 cottages with only one opening, the door. This is because of the tax upon windows. God gives men light, and the law sells it. In the upper and lower house, they make bread once in 6 months. In the winter, it is so hard, they must cut it with an axe. My brethren, behold how much suffering is around you.
The Bishop of D lived very humbly. He had no retinue, and there was with him in his house only 2 old ladies, his housekeeper and his sister, Mademoiselle Baptistine. Here is a letter written by his sister to some girlhood companion.
December 16th, 1814. My dear Madame, not a day passes that we do not speak of you. I am happy, but the weather is severe, and one must do something for those who lack. My brother is so good. He gives all he has to the poor and sick. He exposes himself to every danger. He goes out in the rain, travels in winter. He has no fear of darkness or of dangerous roads, or of those he may meet. Last year he went up all alone into a district infested with robbers, and when he came back, nothing had happened to him. He said, "See how they have robbed me." And he opened a trunk in which he had the jewels of the Ambre Cathedral, which the robbers had given him. Upon that occasion I could not help but scold him, taking care only to speak when the carriage had made a noise so that no one could hear us. The housekeeper has had difficulty accustoming herself to what she calls his imprudence. But now that the thing is settled, we pray together, we are afraid together, and we go to sleep. Should Satan come to this house, no one would interfere. But after all, what is there to fear in this house? Farewell. With 1,000 good wishes, Baptistine.
It will be seen that the bishop was a good man. He had no systems, but many deeds. When he had money, he visited the poor. When he had none, he visited the rich. So Jean Valjean knocked at his door. The events of that evening, early in October 1815, have often been related by Mademoiselle Baptistine. The bishop had been waiting for his supper. He was standing in the dining room by the fire. In the dining room, there was a door opening on the street. His housekeeper, who was setting the table, was just telling his sister about Jean Valjean.
He has a club to beat you with, a rope to hang you with, and a sack to put you in when you're dead.
God save us. Did you see this man?
I did not see him at all, thank heaven, Mademoiselle Baptistine.
Then, madame, how do you know how he looked?
Your Greatness, he was described to me in the market.
Well, madame, do you think we're in very grave danger?
Oh, awful, Your Greatness, with no locks on the doors. And I say, Monseigneur, and Mademoiselle Baptistine here says also...
Me, madame, I say nothing. What my brother does is well done.
We say this house isn't safe. We say that a door which opens by a latch on the outside to the first comer, nothing in the world could be more horrible. And Your Greatness does have the habit, if I do say so, of always saying, "Come in." Goodness, come in even at midnight. The Lord knows there's no need to ask leave to come in at this house when even the beggars...
Come in.
It is he.
Come in, monsieur.
Listen to me. Listen to me before you say anything. Listen. I'm a convict. You hear that? I've been 19 years in the galleys. 4 days ago they let me out. And I've walked all this way from Toulon. I went to the inn, but they sent me away. The jailer wouldn't let me into the prison. No one will have me. I'm a convict. I tried to sleep out under the stars, but there were no stars. It rained, and there was no good God to stop the drops. A woman showed me your house and said to me, "Knock there." So I've knocked. Look, I have money, 109 francs and 15 sous, which I earned in the galleys. I'll pay you. I'll pay you anything. I walked 12 leagues today, and I'm so hungry. Please, have you a stable?
Come in, monsieur, and shut the door.
Wait! Did you hear what I said? I said I was a convict.
Brother, this is the man.
You want to see my passport? Here it is. My yellow passport. Read it.
Very well, monsieur. The bearer is a liberated convict, having been 19 years in the galleys. Original sentence, 5 years. Additional servitude, 14 years. The holder of this passport is a very dangerous man.
Oh, Your Greatness, what shall we do?
Set another place at the table.
But, Your Greatness...
Madame, do as my brother says. Put on another plate.
Yes, mademoiselle.
You mean I can stay? Me? A convict? I thought you'd send me away. So I told you right off who I am.
Baptistine, put some sheets on the bed in the alcove.
Yes, brother.
A bed? You mean I'll have a bed like other people? With sheets and a mattress? It's 19 years since I've slept on a bed. Thank you, Monsieur Innkeeper. I'll pay you all you say. You're a good man. You are an innkeeper, aren't you?
No, monsieur. I am a priest who lives here.
A priest? Oh, of course, your cap. You're the curé. The curé of the big church. Then you don't want me to pay?
No, monsieur. Come nearer the fire. Oh, this lamp is poor. I'll light the candles.
I don't understand. You let me, a galley slave, enter your house. You even light your silver candlesticks for me without so much as asking my name. Monsieur, my name is Jean Valjean.
Well, this is not my house, Jean Valjean. It is the house of Christ. Besides, why should I ask your name? Before you told me, I knew it.
You know it?
Monsieur, your name is my brother.
Your Greatness, the table is set.
Ah, good. But, Madame Magloire.
Yes, Your Greatness?
Something is lacking. Is it not the custom to place all 6 of our silver plates on the table?
Yes, Your Greatness, but...
I count only 3.
I'll fetch them.
Ah, it's better. Ah, Baptistine, is that a bottle of wine I see there?
Indeed, yes. The fine old mold for the special occasions. Madame Magloire put it out.
Here are the plates, Your Greatness.
Oh, thank you, Madame Magloire. I have misjudged you. Come, then, to supper. Monsieur Valjean, you sit there by my sister.
All this is too good for me. Oh, monsieur, if you knew what this means, after 19 years in the chains...
Jean, you have left all that suffering. Remember this. If you leave it with hate and anger, you are worthy of compassion. But if you leave it with goodwill and peace, you are better than any of us. Heavenly Father, we ask thy blessing on this food as we partake of it. May it strengthen us to everlasting life. Amen.
Later, Mademoiselle Baptistine described the progress of this supper in a letter written to a friend.
All I can say is that my brother took supper with this Jean Valjean with the same manner he would have used with the provost or the curé of this parish. After we had eaten, my brother turned to him and said, "You must be very tired. I'll show you to your room." He then did so, lighting the way with one of his candlesticks. Madame Magloire and I said our prayers in the parlor and retired to our chambers without saying a word.
Jean Valjean lay in his bed that night and thought of the bishop's silver. Those 6 silver plates. He had seen the old housekeeper putting them away in the cupboard. He had marked that cupboard well. Solid silver. They would bring at least 200 francs. Double his pay for 19 years' labor. What had been the life of this soul? Society should look into these things. They are its own works. In weariness, in agony, under the whip, under the chain, in the cell, on the convict's bed of plank, under the burning sun of the galleys, Jean Valjean turned to his conscience and reflected. To those who saw him, he seemed looking continually upon something terrible. For human society had done him nothing but injury. No man had ever touched him but to bruise him. Never since childhood had he been greeted with a friendly word. He had no weapon but his hate. He had resolved to sharpen it in the galleys, and he had taken it with him when he went out. So the passport was right. The yellow passport, which described Jean Valjean as a very dangerous man. The next morning at sunrise, the bishop was walking in his garden. Madame Magloire ran up to him quite beside herself.
Monseigneur, your greatness, it's gone.
Yes, madame?
Monseigneur, it's all gone. And the man with the beard and the yellow passport.
Madame, what is gone?
Your greatness is silver. It's been stolen. The 6 lovely plates, your only treasure. Oh, Monseigneur, I was right. I should never have put them on the table. He has stolen them.
Well, then, let us consider.
Yes, Monseigneur.
Firstly, did the silver belong to us? No.
No, Monseigneur?
No. It belonged to the poor. And now, secondly, who was that man? He was a poor man.
I suppose so, your greatness, but he knew silver when he saw it, even if he didn't recognize a bishop from a curé. Oh, Monseigneur, it is not myself I'm thinking of, nor of your sister. I worry on your account. What are you going to eat from?
Have we no tin plates?
Tin smells.
Well, then, iron.
But iron has such a bad taste.
There are always wooden plates.
Yes, Monseigneur wishes. But what an idea to take that man.
Brother, they've caught the man.
Oh, thank God. Have they put him in jail?
No, they've brought him here with the silver. They're outside the gate now. Brother, the police want you to identify him.
Very well. Show them in.
Come along now. Let's have none of your talk. Please. Silence! Prisoner, take your cap off in the presence of the bishop.
Bishop.
Good morning, Valjean.
You recognize him, Monsignor. That's enough. Here is your silver.
Yes. But where are my candlesticks?
Here are the stolen plates, Monsignor. Were there candlesticks, too?
Oh, yes. Yes, they are of silver, like the rest. Valjean, where are my candlesticks?
I didn't take them.
Madame Magloire, be kind enough to go in and get them.
What, Monseigneur?
Go get the candlestick.
But very well, Monseigneur.
Monsieur Valjean, I don't think you understood. I gave you the candlesticks as well.
What? What do you mean?
Monsignor, the prisoner was running off with your plates.
And he told you they were given him by an old priest with whom he had lodged the night. And you brought him here.
Yes, Monsignor. Then it's true what he told me?
I have given him the silver.
Then we can let him go?
But of course.
Here are your candlesticks, but I must say...
Madame Magloire, give them to Monsieur Valjean.
Yes, Your Greatness. Here.
But
Take them, you fool.
But they aren't mine.
Monsieur, the plates and the candlesticks are yours. Take them. But never forget that you have promised me to use this silver to become an honest man.
I have promised you.
Jean Valjean, I have purchased your soul. I withdraw it from the spirit of perversity and give it to Almighty God.
Jean Valjean ran out of the city as though he were escaping and made haste into the open country. A little gypsy boy passed by and dropped a penny. Jean Valjean put his foot on it and drove the boy away. Then he picked it up and ran after the boy. But he never found him. He found himself. He knew then that he must conquer or be conquered. He saw before him himself as he was, stick in hand, knapsack on his shoulders, the hideous galley slave, Jean Valjean. He beheld himself face to face and saw at the same time a light like a torch, and he knew that this torch was the bishop. Jean Valjean shrank and vanished. The bishop remained. There came to him the bishop's own words.
Jean Valjean, you have promised me to become an honest man. I have purchased your soul.
Then his heart swelled up in him, and he burst into tears. It was the first time he had wept in 19 years. How long did he weep thus? What did he do after weeping? Where did he go? No one ever knew. Only one thing is certain. On that very night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, a figure was seen in the attitude of prayer, kneeling upon the pavement, in the shadow, before the door of the Bishop of D.
WOR and the Mutual Network have presented Part 1, The Bishop, of Victor Hugo's absorbing story, Les Miserables. Orson Welles has played the role of Jean Valjean and read the narrative passages of this presentation, which he has prepared specifically for radio broadcasting. Next Friday evening at 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time, we shall present Les Miserables in its second episode, which introduces Javert. This is the Coast to Coast Network of the Mutual Broadcasting System.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London.
The Black Museum, the repository of death. Yes, here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a skillet, a screwdriver, a photograph, all are touched by murder. Here's a .22 caliber pistol. It's a familiar object. You've seen one or its picture. You've never touched one. An elegant little weapon. Blue steel, mother of pearl inlaid grip. Beautiful in its dainty, snub-nosed wickedness.
A lady's weapon, wouldn't you say, Pepper?
Looks as if it wouldn't harm a fly. Pretty in its way, Inspector.
Pretty and dangerous. There ought to be a law forbidding the manufacture of these toys. Every one of them is capable of death.
Well, today, this little blue 22 can be found among the exhibits in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. It's an impressive place. The kind of echoing awe which comes from a vaulted ceiling and somber lighting. Weird, fantastic, with a harsh, real fantasy that comes with murder. Here lies death, and so neatly. Each object placarded with a small white card labeled with black lettering, name, place, date, disposition of the case. Here's an odd-looking ashtray, soapstone. It's carved rather nicely with the crouching figure of a woman. Something decorative for your living room, but observe closely now the red-brown stain on the rim. Lift up the tray, hold it by the figure of the woman. Oh, yes, it's comfortable in your hand, and suddenly, this is a weapon. Ah, here we are, the little blue 22. Well, it's silent now. It was silent, too, during Vivian Davis's cocktail party in London's smart, sophisticated West End. In Vivian's quite chic apartment. It was not destined to be silent, though. Not very long. It's a nice place, Vivian's apartment, if you go for ultra-modern glass and metal combinations. Nice people, too. Well, nice looking, anyway. Young men are quite impeccable. The young ladies are lovely, lush, well aware of the well-put-together attractiveness. Oh, yes, these are the chic young people.
Larry, darling, have you been watching Vivian and Donald?
What else, sweet? They are at dagger points, aren't they?
Well, frankly, Larry, if Viv has one more martini, she'll kill Donald with a look.
An alcoholic look, at any rate. But why all the fuss and bother? If Donald wants to play, she ought to let him. I know at least 3 males who are perfectly willing to give Viv a time, really.
Mm-hmm. Including yourself, Larry, my sweet?
No, darling, I'm the 4th. But then why bother?
A trifle strange, isn't it? The ultra-sophisticated, the over-civilized, and yet, beneath the polish, the same old jealousy that you can find in savages. Oh, yes, simple jealousy. For instance, at this moment, Vivian herself is approaching the chrome and plastic bar where Donald is mixing a drink.
Donald, haven't you had enough? You're quite tight, you know.
Am I? Really?
I asked you, Donald, haven't you had enough?
I don't believe I have. Will you have one, dear?
I've had enough, let me tell you. This is my party. You might be polite enough to pay some attention to me and a little less to that strawberry blonde.
Oh, she's quite attractive in a leggy sort of way.
Oh, yes, quite elemental. beneath the polished surface. An interesting situation. It continues, of course, as long as the party lasts. It continues, as a matter of fact, well past the end of the party, even to the moment when May and Larry are making their farewells. The last of the guests to go.
Oh, it was simply marvellous, Viv, darling. Just delightful.
I always adore your parties, Viv. The liquor flows like water.
Oh, thank you both for coming. My little parties wouldn't be the same without you. Isn't that so, Donald?
Yes, of course. Coming, Donald Orson?
Well, I don't exactly know.
Larry, please.
What? Oh, put my foot in it, haven't I? I'm sorry, old man. Au revoir, Viv. Let the martinis run again sometime soon.
Bye, darling. Ring me, won't you? Oh, soon, darling. Quite soon.
Donald's for it now. Did you see the look in her eye?
Come along, dear. Don't be catty.
Oh, I don't know.
The party's over now. Silence descends on the carpeted hallway. For a moment or two. And then, through the muffling walls...
You stupid little, silly little beast on that woman.
Oh, stop it, Viv. I'm not interested in her. I
don't you make me look like a perfect idiot.
And there's this woman. A jealous woman. Where does it go? Isn't it obvious? Of course. Somebody's bound to be hurt. Inspector Summers and Detective Pepper arrived quickly from the yard.
This seems to be the weapon, Inspector. A .22. Blue steel, mother-of-pearl grip.
A lady's weapon, wouldn't you say, Pepper?
Looks as if it wouldn't harm a fly. Pretty in its way, Inspector.
Pretty and dangerous. There ought to be a law forbidding the manufacture of these toys. Every one of them is capable of death.
Funny.
What is?
The body, out here. On the landing.
Yes. Well, we'll find the reason for that shortly. Not much blood. 22s don't make much of a hole. Stay here, Pepper. I want the pathologist to see the body before it goes to the morgue. You know the procedure. I'll be inside with the prime and only suspect.
Yes, sir. I understand.
All right. Tell me how it happened.
Don't you dare to talk to me like that.
Take hold of yourself, Miss Davis. I need the answers to a few questions. I'll answer that.
Don't you dare. That's my telephone.
Yes? No. This is Inspector Summers of Scotland Yard. I see. I'm sorry, Lady Munsey, you can't speak to your daughter just now. Yes. She'll be coming down to the yard. You can come there if you wish. Goodbye.
Now will you leave me alone? You know who my mother is.
Which do you prefer, to answer my questions here or to come down to the yard?
I refuse to answer anything.
That won't look well in the report, miss.
Oh, get out of here. Get out.
Take
now.
hold of yourself, Miss Davis.
I've told you and told you. Donald and I were arguing. I suppose I grabbed the gun from under the pillow where I keep it. He tried to take it away from me. And next I knew there was a shot and he was mumbling something about a doctor. And then he was dead. Oh, now leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Inspector Summers felt that further questioning was indicated. The location he chose was his own office at the yard.
Where did you get the gun, Miss Davis?
My husband gave it to me several years ago.
Are you married?
I was. I'm divorced.
Inspector Summers thought of many questions.
Where did you struggle over the gun?
In the bedroom.
I see. Why do you use linoleum for a floor covering in the bedroom?
Oh, because it's easy to keep clean, and because it's chic, and because... Oh, what has that to do with Donald?
I'm asking the questions, Miss Davis.
Oh, yes, there were many, many questions.
How long have you lived at that address? How long did you know Donald Martin? Have you ever bought any ammunition for that gun? What were you quarreling about?
It went on and on. And finally...
Very well, Miss Davis. We shan't hold you. But don't leave London. And your mother is waiting for you. You better go home with her. We're sealing your apartment.
An inconvenient matter, violent death from a gunshot wound. Apartments are sealed, people investigate. One's whole life is turned inside out. And then there are the experts.
The scientific facts contradict some of Miss Davis's statements, Inspector.
They do? For instance?
There's no evidence of any scorching of the clothing round the bullet hole. From that fact and the spread of the smoke stain, I deduce that the gun was held from 3 to 6 inches from Martin's chest. As the blood ran down the chest, he must have been standing at the time. It would be practically impossible for him to hold the weapon himself in that position.
Could he have clutched the barrel, say, in an attempt to take it away from Miss Davis?
In that case, his fingers would be singed, or at least blackened. They're not. I do not believe that the man was touching the weapon at all when it was fired.
An embarrassing conclusion, to say the least. There were other things.
I've checked Martin's shoes at the morgue, Inspector.
Well?
If they struggled in that bedroom, on that polished linoleum floor, his shoes would have had to scratch the floor. They're leather-soled, and they have metal taps on the tips.
Very good. Another discrepancy. Now, Pepper, I think we'd better have a bit of a talk with the neighbors. Are you certain of that, Mrs. Merritt?
I am positive. It's not the first time they yelled at each other, those two, and the walls are thin.
Do you have it down, Pepper?
Yes, sir. They had a quarrel about 2 weeks ago. He left. She leaned out of the window, only half-dressed, and shouted at him, "Laugh, baby, laugh for the last time." And then she fired a gun at him.
Thank you. Now then, Mrs. Merritt, before the shot last night, did you catch any of the words they said?
His? Oh, no, sir. But, well, her bedroom is next to mine, and I heard her say, as clear as day, and at the top of her lungs, "I will kill you."
Thank you, Mrs. Merritt. Anything else?
No, sir.
Very well. Let's go, Pepper. All right, Pepper. I think we have the makings of a case. Pick her up. We'll book her for willful murder.
And today, the little blue 22, which was to play such an important part in the case, can be seen among the other exhibits in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
As the inspector said, they felt they had a case. The evidence was piling up. Vivian Davis was arrested. Her defense counsel was a distinguished member of the bar, and the prosecutor assigned was no less brilliant. But some of the conversation about the case was, well, a lot less brilliant.
Why, if Larry and I had stayed, we might have seen the whole thing. And darling, those letters. Imagine leaving letters like that lying in your bureau drawer, where anyone might find them. And do you suppose the prosecution will use them for evidence? This is one trial I simply shall not miss.
Let me say here and now, if May owns a gun, I'm walking out, and at once. But Viv always was unstable, you know. That's the kind who'll pull a gun on you when you least expect it. Not for me, old man. Not for me.
I always said she was no better than you'd think. Wild parties at all hours, firing guns around, drinking. Oh, I dare say the woman wasn't happy. But then who is? Now I ask you, who is?
Poor Viv. I understand the food in prison is all starches.
Seen the headlines? This is a juicy one, what?
I'll be a witness. You don't say. Really now, you don't say.
They tried the case in public gossip long before it came to proper trial. And when the proper trial began, the courtroom was crowded naturally with bright young women and polished young men, the familiars of the defendant. This, however, failed to ruffle the solemnity of a British court.
I shall permit no demonstrations. At the least lapse from proper decorum, I shall have the courtroom cleared.
And that settled that. The trial proceeded. Vivian Davis, in simple black, sat in the dock between the two wardresses assigned to guard her. On the witness stand, the pathologist repeated his evidence and his conclusions for the prosecution. There was no cross-examination. With Inspector Summers, it was another matter.
Inspector, you heard the prison doctor testify that when Miss Davis was admitted to the prison after her arrest, he found bruises on her arms and on one thigh.
Yes, sir.
And that such bruises might have been sustained in a struggle.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Now then, in your experience, have you found that when one person handles a gun, that person's fingerprints are usually found on the weapon?
That has been my experience.
However, if two parties struggled for possession of a certain weapon, would there be fingerprints?
In most cases, no, sir. They tend to smudge or eliminate each other's prints.
This weapon, which you've identified and which has been entered in evidence as Exhibit A, did you find this weapon at the scene of the alleged crime?
I did.
Did you examine it carefully?
I did.
Did you have it tested for fingerprints?
I did.
Did you find any?
Yes, sir.
How many sets?
Only one set of prints were on that gun.
Whose were they, Inspector? Now tell the jury, please, whose fingerprints were on that gun?
Only my own.
One more point, Inspector. You stated that you found a bullet in the wall of the bedroom, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you any reason to believe this bullet was fired on the night of the alleged crime?
It could have been fired at any time, I suppose.
Thank you, Inspector. That's all.
Mrs. Merritt, the eager next-door neighbor, had her proverbial day in court.
Yes, sir. Just as I told the inspector, she screamed at him, hanging out of the window only half-dressed, and then she fired a shot at him.
Counsel for the defense spent little time in the cross-examination of Mrs. Merritt.
Madam, did you actually see Miss Davis fire a pistol or gun of some sort at the deceased?
I heard the shot after she yelled at him.
You said she was only half-dressed at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then you must have seen her.
Well, I took one look, and after that I only listened.
Why? Why, Mrs. Merritt?
When a woman is in her condition, no other woman cares to watch her.
I see. This is your opinion.
It certainly is.
Your Lordship, I respectfully request that the answers to the last two questions be stricken from the record as constituting an opinion and not evidence. Further, on the grounds that opinions are not warranted, as the witness is not qualified as an expert.
Well...
The clerk will strike the last two answers from the record, and the jury is instructed to ignore the testimony. Proceed.
No further questions. Thank you, Mrs. Merritt.
Back and forth, the battle raged, a battle for a woman's life. The case for the Crown was ably presented. The defense, by cross-examination, by objections in the record, sought to upset testimony to establish points which could be played upon later, the climax of the trial, when Vivian Davis herself took the stand in her own defense.
Now, Miss Davis, you understand the seriousness of this situation.
Of course.
I refer to the testimony that you once fired a gun at Donald Martin from your bedroom window. Is this true?
No, it's not true.
What did happen that evening?
He'd come to see me. He'd asked me for money to pay a gambling debt, and I refused. We quarreled, and he left. I was furious, and I called to him from my window. Then I went back into the room and fired one shot to make him think I'd killed myself.
What happened then?
Oh, Donald. Mr. Martin came rushing back, and we were friends again.
Miss Davis, have you ever pointed a weapon at Mr. Martin?
No, never.
Have you wanted to?
No, never.
Did you shoot him the night he died?
No!
Have you any recollection of his having spoken to you between the time he was shot and the moment he died?
I'll never forget it as long as I live.
What did he say?
He said, I wish the doctor would hurry. I want to tell him that this was an accident. It's not your fault. He said it over and over. And then he was dead.
Thank you, Miss Davis. Your witness.
Pull yourselves together, Miss Davis.
Yes, sir.
Very well. I submit, Miss Davis, that the truth of your first public quarrel is, as it was stated by a previous witness, that you did fire out of your window at Mr. Martin.
Oh, no, never. I fired in the room. I wanted to frighten him.
Miss Davis, is this your pistol?
Yes.
Is this the weapon which killed Mr. Martin?
Yes.
And on the night this gun, your gun, killed Mr. Martin, you had a quarrel, a second quarrel.
Yes.
You were, to put it simply, jealous of his behavior with other women.
Oh, I was so jealous I threatened to kill myself.
You threatened to kill yourself?
Yes.
Then why did you shout, I will kill you?
No, I never said that.
What did you say, Miss Davis?
I never said I'll shoot myself. The other, I never said. Why should I? I was jealous, but that was because I loved him. Oh, you've got to believe me. I loved him. I did.
There was more, much more, over and over, but they never managed to shake her on the essential points.
I never pointed a gun at Donald in my life.
And, of course,
I never said I'd kill him. I said I'd kill myself.
at long last, with Vivian Davis on the verge of collapse, the prosecutor let her go. Shortly thereafter, the defense rested. Summations were brief. For the prosecution?
This woman is guilty of the crime with which she is charged. There is no doubt in our minds, nor should there be any in yours, that she held the pistol and fired the shot.
For the defense?
It is clear that no woman kills the man she loves, despite the violence of their quarrels. This was an accident. It is clear that it was an accident.
The presiding justice was clear and concise in his charge to the jury.
The gentlemen of the jury, in conclusion, let me advise you there are 3 possible verdicts you may return under the present indictment. Guilty of murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty of any offense. I commend the accused to your most painstaking deliberations.
The jury filed out. They stayed out for 2 long, weary hours. There was chatter in the courtroom. There always is. But even the gossip was subdued. Everybody waited. Waited.
It seems perfectly incredible. A murder trial, and I've been in on it since the beginning. I do hope the judge wasn't as much against her as he seemed to be.
It was really too exciting for words. I've had more dinner invitations because I know Viv. Oh, well, after all, the poor girl might be hanged, you know. Oh, grisly thought.
Well, for my part, even if she gets off, there'll be one advantage. She'll never be my neighbor again, and that will be an improvement, I'd say.
And at long last, the waiting was over. The prisoner arose in the dock, the judge's request. The foreman of the jury faced the prisoner in the court. The age-old formula was intoned by the clerk.
Members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict?
We have.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty of murder?
Not guilty.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty of manslaughter?
Not guilty.
Yet, despite that verdict, the little blue 22 can be seen today among the exhibits in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
Yes, they let Vivian Davis go free. In many minds, the question was, and still is, did Vivian Davis get away with murder? Frankly, I don't believe anyone gets away with murder. Murder stays with a killer, twisting mind and heart and soul, even in the unsuspected and therefore unsolved cases. Where Vivian Davis was concerned, perhaps the real crime was insecurity and the kind of violent jealousy that grows from fear. I don't know. That's for the psychologists, not for you and I to decide. Meanwhile, the little Blue 22 remains in its customary place in Scotland Yard, in the Black Museum. And now, until we meet again next time, in the same place, and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions. The program is written by Ara Marion, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.
The Columbia Network takes pride in presenting Orson Welles in the first production of a unique new summer series by the Mercury Theater on the Air. In a single year, the first in the life of the Mercury Theater, Orson Welles has come to be the most famous name of our time in American drama. Says Collier's Magazine,
23-year-old Orson Welles threw a bombshell into Broadway.
Robert Benchley writes in the New Yorker,
The production of the Mercury is, I should say, just about perfect.
Time Magazine declares,
The brightest moon that has risen over Broadway in years. Welles should feel at home in the sky, for the sky is the only limit which his ambitions recognize.
And finally, the United Press remarks,
Meteoric rise of Orson Welles' Mercury Theater continues unabated.
With 4 hit shows in its birth year, the Mercury might well close its door on a season unparalleled in Broadway history. But Mr. Wells has long been working on a project for a greater audience, the Broadways of the entire United States. The Columbia Network is proud to give Orson Welles the opportunity to bring to the air those same qualities of vitality and imagination that have made him the most talked-of theatrical director in America today. And it is this project which Columbia brings you this summer, the first time in its history that radio has ever extended such an invitation to an entire theatrical institution. But here is Orson Welles himself to tell you about it. The director of the Mercury Theater, the star and producer of these programs, Orson Welles.
Good evening. The Mercury Theater faces tonight a challenge and an opportunity for which we are grateful. We will present during the next 9 weeks many different kinds of stories. Stories of romance and adventure, biography, mystery, and human emotion. Stories by authors like Robert Louis Stevenson, Emile Zola, Dostoevsky, Edgar Allan Poe, and P.G. Wodehouse. In the cast tonight are Martin Gable, the Cassius of our production of Julius Caesar, and George Coulouris, who played Antony in that production and appeared also in our Shoemaker's Holiday and Heartbreak House, and other leading Mercury Theater players. We're starting off tonight with the best story of its kind ever written. You will find it in every representative library of classic English narratives. It is Bram Stoker's Dracula. The next time I speak to you, I am Dr. Arthur Seward. George Coulouris plays Jonathan Harker, and Martin Gable plays Dr. Van Helsing. It is Dr. Seward who tells the story, and so for the moment, goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in Transylvania.
The Mercury Theater on the Air presents Orson Welles as Count Dracula in his own version of Bram Stoker's great novel, Dracula.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Arthur Seward. I'm here tonight to bear witness to the truth of certain events which you may find it hard to believe, but I ask you to believe them. I have here certain documents, telegrams, clippings from the press of the day, memoranda, and letters in various hands. All needless matters have been eliminated, so that a history almost at variance with the possibilities of contemporary belief may stand forth as simple fact. I present you first with excerpts from the private journal of Jonathan Harker.
I, Jonathan Harker, lawyer's clerk, article to Peter Hawkins, Esquire of Exeter, England, am writing this journal in the hope that if misfortune overtakes me, it may one day come to the eyes of those who love me. I set out from London on the last day of April to visit one of our clients in Eastern Europe. On May the 3rd, I arrived in Budapest and came after nightfall to Klausenburg on the borders of Transylvania. At Bistritz, there was a letter of welcome for me from our client, informing me that his carriage would await me at the Borgo Pass. It was signed Dracula.
Bukovina! Couch for Bukovina!
The road was rough, but still we seemed to fly over it with feverish haste. When it grew dark, there seemed to be some excitement among the passengers. They kept speaking to the driver and looking at me and urging him on to greater speed. The crazy coach rocked on its great leather strings. The mountains seemed to come nearer to us on either side.
Coachman! Coachman!
What is it? Where are we?
You're nearing your destination, young hare. This is the Borgo Pass.
There were black, rolling clouds overhead, and in the air the heavy, oppressive sense of thunder. Now, we were through the pass.
The young hare is not expected after all.
You are early tonight, my friends.
A caleche with 4 horses had drawn up beside us.
Let me help you, sir.
The coachman smiled, and the lamplight fell on a hard-looking mouth with very red lips and sharp-looking teeth, as white as ivory. We began to move. I looked back. The coach and its load of passengers had vanished from sight. We swept into the darkness of the pass. I struck a match. It was within a few minutes of midnight. And then a dog began to howl somewhere far down the road. The wind was rising, moaned and whistled through the rocks, and the branches of the trees crashed together as we swept along. It grew colder and colder still, and fine powdery snow began to fall. The baying of wolves sounded nearer and nearer, as though they were closing round us from every side. We kept on ascending, always ascending. The howling of wolves was growing less. Presently, it ceased altogether. And just then, the moon broke through the black cloud. There's a ring of wolves running alongside the carriage, in silence, with white teeth and lolling red tongues, with long sinewy limbs and shaggy hair.
Welcome to my house.
I must have fallen asleep. The carriage had pulled up in the courtyard of a vast ruined castle. The coachman was nowhere to be seen.
Welcome to my house. Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring.
Count Dracula?
I am Dracula.
Face was strong, very strong, aquiline. The mouth, so far as I could see under the heavy mustache, was fixed and rather cruel-looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth.
You're here, Mr. Harker.
The wolves?
The children of the night, as you say, Mr. Harker. The wolves. Listen. Come now. There are many things you must tell me tomorrow. Of England and of the estate there you have purchased for me.
Why, yes.
The estate is called Carfax, I believe.
Yes, that is so.
But now I will detain you no longer. You will find your room in readiness. And I advise you not to leave it during the night.
This castle is on the very edge of a terrible precipice. A stone falling from the window would fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. I explored. There are doors everywhere, and all of them locked. The door to the great hall, the door to the courtyard, every door in the castle is closed, bolted against me. The castle of Dracula is a prison, and I am a prisoner. The next night, I couldn't sleep. So after a few hours, I got up and, lighting my candle, I placed my shaving mirror on the dressing table and was just beginning to shave.
You seem restless, Mr. Harker.
I hadn't seen him, although the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. I turned to the glass again. Count Dracula was close to me, and I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. It was blank. I started and cut myself on the side of the throat. The blood was trickling down my neck. Count, my mirror!
The blood! The blood! Wipe the blood from your face, Mr. Harker. And take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think in this country.
When I woke, I found most of my things were gone. My passport, my notes, my letter of credit. I could find no trace of them anywhere. And my door is locked from the outside. June 20th. There is work of some kind going on in the castle. Now and then I hear the faraway muffled sound of mattock and spade. And last night, the second of the predated letters which Dracula made me write, the second of that series which is to blot out the very traces of my existence from the earth, went forth. Dracula.
Yes, my young friend.
Well, what of me? When am I free? When can I leave this place?
Free? Mr. Harker, you're always free. You want to leave? Would you like to leave tonight?
Yes, in God's name.
My dear young friend, not an hour should you wait in my house against your will. Come, follow me. The door seems to be bolted. How strange. The door is locked.
Well, in God's name, open it.
As you will, Mr. Harker. You English have a proverb which is very close to my heart. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest. Good night, Mr. Harker.
Shut the door! Shut the door! I tell you, shut the door! Shut!
The door is shut, Mr. Harker. I take it you will remain.
Morning, June the 30th. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. Oh, God preserve my sanity. I have never seen Count Dracula by day. At sunrise, at the first cockcrow, he is gone. I don't understand these things. I only know that the wolves obey him, and that he is a man with hair on the palm of his hands, with sharp teeth, and no blood in his face. He casts no shadow. He cannot be seen in a glass, and he moves like a bat across the sheer face of the castle walls. He eats no food, and is mortally afraid of the crucifix. As I write this, I hear in the courtyard the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips. And there is in the passageway below a sound of heavy boxes being set down. Boxes shaped like coffins. And I know what they hold. The boxes are filled with holy earth from the chapel beneath the castle. It is the last box being nailed down. Now I hear the heavy feet tramping again. The door shut. The chains rattle. In the courtyard and down the rocky way, the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips.
Help! Help! Help!
The wagons have gone. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone in the castle. I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Seward. Mr. Harker's journal terminates at this point. I am presenting evidence of clipping dated August 8th of that year from the Yorkshire Telegraph from our correspondent in Whitby. One of the greatest and suddenest storms on record is experienced here today. The weather has been somewhat sultry, but Saturday evening was fine. The band was playing. The piers were crowded with holidaymakers. The wind fell away entirely during the evening, and there was a dead calm. There were but few lights at sea. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner under full canvas, which was seemingly going westward. A little after midnight came a strange sound from over the sea, and high overhead the air began to carry a strange, faint, hollow booming. Then, without warning, the tempest broke. And there, with all sails set, was the foreign schooner rushing with terrific speed toward the shore. A searchlight was turned on her. And there, lashed to the helm, was a corpse, with drooping head which swayed horribly to and fro at each motion of the ship. A moment later, she crashed. And then a strange thing was seen. At the very instant she touched, a huge dog sprang up on deck from below and, running forward, jumped from the bow onto the sand and, making straight up the east cliff toward the graveyard, vanished into the night. The Coast Guard, going aboard at dawn, found the dead man fastened to a spoke of the wheel. Tightly clutched in one hand was a crucifix. The man must have been dead for quite 2 days. In the pocket of the dead man's coat was found a bottle, carefully corked, containing a roll of paper. This proved to be an addendum to the ship's log. There was found on board only a small amount of cargo, and that of a most unusual nature. Apparently the ship carried nothing but earth, common earth, packed away in wooden boxes.
shaped much like coffins.
Log of the Demeter, July 6th. Finished taking in cargo, a queer cargo, boxes of earth. At noon, set sail, east wind, fresh. Crew, 4 hands, 2 mates, cook, and myself, captain, July 11th. Entered Bosporus. At dark, passed through Dardanelles. Mate reported in morning that one of crew, Valjoden, was missing.
Took larboard watch, 8 bells last night. He was relieved by Chalice. Came to his bunk.
Something aboard this ship.
No. Don't laugh, Captain. In the rain last night.
Oh?
A tall, thin man go up companionway and along the deck forward and disappeared. When I go to the bow, no one. And the hatchways all closed.
July 22nd. Rough weather last 3 days. All hands busy with sails. No time be frightened. Past Gibraltar and out through straits. All well. July 24th. Last night, another hand was lost. Disappeared.
By Chalice. Leave all watch midnight. Then we never see him again. Double watch now. I don't take watch alone no more. Double watch. Double watch.
July 29th. Had single watch tonight as crew too tired to double. When morning come...
Hey! Hey, Milo! Banoisin! Banoisin! Is Banoisin below? Banoisin's gone! Banoisin's gone like the others.
Like all the others.
Mate and I have agreed to go armed henceforth, July 30th. Last night, we are nearing England. Weather fine. All sails set.
Captain! Captain! The man in the watch at the stairs is missing! Both missing!
Now, only self and mate and one hand left to work ship. August 3rd. 2 days of fog and not a sail sighted. At midnight, I went to relieve the man at wheel, and when I got to it, found no one there.
It's here! I know it now. I saw it. Like a man, tall and thin, ghastly bare. It was in the bows looking out. I gave it the knife, and my knife went through it.
What?
Empty as air.
What is it? What are you talking about?
It's here, and I'll find it. It's in the hold. In one of those boxes of earth. I'll unscrew them one by one and see. And see.
He is mad. Stark raving mad. It's no use my trying to stop him. He can't hurt those big boxes. They are invoiced as common earth.
Down in the hold. I know the secret now. The sea will save me from him. That's all that's left. That's all that's left.
August 4th. I am all alone on my ship. And still the fog. I dared not go below. I dared not leave the helm. So here all night I stayed, and in the dimness of the night I saw it. I saw him. God forgive me, but the mate was right to jump overboard. It was better to die like a sailor in the blue water. But I am captain, and I must not leave my ship. I shall tie my hands to the wheel when my strength begins to fail. And along with them I shall tie that which it dare not touch, my crucifix. I am growing weaker, and the night is coming on. God and the Blessed Virgin help a poor ignorant soul trying to do his duty.
listening to the Columbia Network's first presentation in a new summer series of unique dramatic productions featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. In just a moment, our story of Bram Stoker's Dracula will continue. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. We continue now with Columbia Network's presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in Dracula.
Telegram, Seward, perfect. To Van Helsing, Amsterdam. Lucy Westenra in alarming condition. Cannot diagnose. Come at once. Seward.
Telegram, Van Helsing, Amsterdam, to Seward, perfect. I'm on my way to you. Please arrange the examination immediately my arrival, Van Helsing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I must now explain that 6 months before the events recorded here, I had become engaged to a young lady, Lucy Westenra. We were to have been married in the spring. My old teacher, Professor Van Helsing, arrived at 4 the next afternoon. I took him at once to Lucy's house. She lay in a bed asleep. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out.
Young miss is bad. Very bad. She must have blood or she will die. Yet she is not anemic. The qualitative analysis of her blood gives quite normal condition. It is strange. I do not like to think how strange.
Look! My God, her throat, look!
The black velvet band that she always wore had dragged up a little and showed a red mark on her throat. Just over the external jugular vein were 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. The edges were white and worn looking. Well? Well, what is it, Professor? What's wrong with her? Speak frankly. You can tell me the worst.
I wish I could, Stuart. I wish I could. But I do not dare.
But won't you tell me anything?
I will tell you this. Your young lady is in a danger greater than death. You must believe me. If you leave her for 1 moment and harm befalls, you will not sleep easy thereafter.
September 8th. I sat up all night with Lucy.
Arthur, I'm afraid.
My dear, you can sleep tonight. I'm here watching you. Nothing can happen. And I promise if any sign of bad dreams, if I see anything, I'll wake you at once.
Will you really? Then I'll sleep.
I sat all night by her bedside, and she did not wake once during the night, although a bowels or a bat or something flapped almost angrily against the window panes. September 11th. Still quoting from my private journals. At this time that I received a message from Purfleet. Read 10:20 p.m. St. John's Hospital, serious complications, case 891, your immediate presence, London, imperative. I had no choice. Sometime later, a paper was found among Lucy Westenra's belongings.
I write this and leave it to be seen so that no one may by any chance get into trouble through me. I went to bed as usual, taking care that the window was closed, as Dr. Van Helsing had directed. About 2 in the morning, I awakened. I went to the door, called out, "Arthur! Arthur!" There was no answer. Something's broken the window. I'm in the room, alone. I dare not go out. The house seems empty. The air is full of specks, floating, circling in the draught from the window. The light burns blue, dim. What am I to do? Something very sweet and very bitter all around me. And I seem sinking into deep water. And there's singing in my ears.
Thou shalt be flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood.
September 12th. Late. Only resolution and habit can let me make an entry tonight. We found her sprawled on the floor. There was a draft in the room from the broken window. Her throat was bare, showing the 2 wounds, looking horribly white and mangled.
We are too late, my friend. We have failed. God's will be done.
She's dying.
Yes. She's dying. Stay beside her. It will make much difference, mark me. Whether she dies conscious or in her sleep.
It was late in the afternoon before she opened her eyes.
Arthur, oh, my love, I'm so glad you've come.
I took her hands and knelt beside her. Her breath came and went like a tired, peaceful child's. And then the light from the setting sun fell on her face, and then, insensibly, a strange change came over her. Her eyes grew suddenly dull and hard. Her breathing was heavy. The mouth opened, and the pale gums drawn back made the teeth look large and sharp.
Arthur, oh, my love, I'm so glad you've come. Kiss me. Bend down and kiss me.
Not for your life. Not for your living soul and hers. Lucy!
She's dead.
Poor girl. There's peace for her at last. The end.
Not so. It is only the beginning. Wait and see.
Gazette, September 25th. A Hempstead mystery. The Kensington Horror, the stabbing woman, and the woman in black are vividly recalled to mind by a series of events that have taken place recently in the neighborhood of Hempstead. Several cases have occurred of young children straying from home or failing to return from their playing on the heath. In all these cases, the children have given as their excuse that they have been with a beautiful lady who offered them chocolates. In each case, the child was found to be slightly torn or wounded in the throat. The wound seemed such as might be made by a rat or a small dog.
The Hempstead Horror. Another child injured by the beautiful lady. We have just received intelligence that another child missed last night was only discovered late in the morning. It has the same tiny wound in the throat. Well, Stuart, what do you think of that? You mean to tell me, my friend, that you still have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of?
Nervous prostration, following great loss and waste of blood.
And how was the blood lost or wasted? You are a clever man, my friend, and a good doctor. But you do not believe that there are things that you cannot understand. You are wrong, Stuart. Are you aware of all the mysteries of life and death? Can you tell me why in the pampas there are bats that come at night and open the veins of cattle and horses and suck dry those veins? How in some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on trees all day, and then when the sailors sleep on deck because it is hot, flit down on them, and then in the morning are found dead men, as white as Miss Lucy was?
I understand none of these things.
After tonight, Stuart, if you dare to come with me, perhaps then you will understand.
September 29th. Before dawn. Now it is done. And I would sooner die 1,000 deaths than live again to what I did this night.
We will spend the night, you and I, here in this churchyard where Miss Lucy is buried. We enter the tomb, then we open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced.
Take care, Van Helsing.
Miss Lucy is dead, is it not so?
then there can be no wrong to her. But if she is not dead...
With some difficulty, we found the Westenra tomb. I took up my place behind a yew tree on one side of the tomb, Van Helsing on the other. I was chilled and frightened. Suddenly, I saw something moving between two yew trees, a dim white figure which held something at its breast. The figure stopped. I could not see the face, for it was bent down over what I saw to be a fair-haired child. There was a sharp little cry, such as a child gives in sleep, or a dog as it lies before the fire and dreams. Then the thing saw us. She drew back with an angry snarl. The lovely blood-stained mouth grew to an open square. If ever a face meant death, I saw it at that moment. Then suddenly she turned and vanished in the direction of the tomb.
Child is not harmed. We leave him in a safe place where the police find him. There's more to do. Come.
Now we were in the tomb. Then in the coffin. The thing lay like a nightmare of Lucy, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained mouth. Van Helsing never looked up. From his bag he took out a book, his operating knives, a heavy hammer, and a round wooden stake, some 2 or 3 inches thick, sharpened to a fine point, and hardened over a fire.
Stuart, the life of this unhappy woman is just begun. Then she become what you call undead. There comes with the change the curse of immortality. She cannot die, but must go on age after age, adding new victims. Because all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead and prey on others. So the circle goes on, ever widening as the ripples from a stone thrown in the water. But if this lady, this undead, be made to rest as true dead, then the soul of the poor lady whom we love shall be again free.
Tell me, what am I to do?
Take this stake in your left hand, the hammer in your right.
Yes.
Place the point over the heart.
Yes.
Then, when I begin the prayer for the dead, in God's name strike. Are you ready? Now, Domine Jesu Christe, Fili de vivi, qui in manus tuas ex voluntate Patri.
On the morning of July 11th, a man was found on the border of Transylvania. He talked wildly of wolves and boxes of earth and blood. He gave his name as Jonathan Harker. In the hospital at Klausenberg, he improved sufficiently to make possible his removal to England. I'm still quoting from my own personal papers. But there his condition remained so serious that he was committed for observation to a private ward in my hospital at Purfleet. Here he did so well that in 3 weeks he was completely recovered. It was during this time that his wife, Minna Harker, brought to the attention of Dr. Van Helsing and myself the journal that her husband had kept while a prisoner in the castle of a certain Count Dracula in Transylvania. I have before me the record of a meeting that took place in my study in Purfleet, transcribed by Minna Harker.
October 1st. Meeting again soon after 8. Jonathan next to me. Dr. Seward opposite to Van Helsing at the head of the table.
My friends, there are such things as vampires. Had I known at first what now I know, one so precious life had been spared to many of us who love her. The vampire which is amongst us is of himself so strong that he can direct all the elements. The storm, the flood, the thunder. He can command all the meaner things, the moth and bat, the owl and the fox and the wolf. How, then, are we to begin our strike to destroy him? How shall we find his place? And having found it, how can we destroy? My friends, it is a terrible task that we undertake. To fail here is not mere life or death. If we fail, we, become as him. Foul things of the night as him. What do you say?
I answer for myself.
Count me in. I'm with you.
The professor laid a small golden crucifix on the table. We took hands, and our solemn pact was made.
My friends, we too are not without strength. The vampire flourishes on the blood of the living. Without this, he cannot live. He throws no shadow. He makes no reflection in a mirror. He can transform himself to a wolf, to a bat. He can come on moonlight rays as elemental dust. He can see in the dark. He can do all these things. Yet he is not free. His power ceases at the coming of the day. Then, until night, he must remain in the shape in which he finds himself, and except in his coffin home, in those earth boxes he cannot rest. When we can confine him in his coffin, then, my friends, if we obey what we know, we will destroy him.
At that moment, something flapped wildly against the window. Then...
You hit it? I don't know.
We looked out of the window. Against the black sky, we could see nothing.
Data in our possession. From the Count's castle in Transylvania to Whitby came 50 boxes of earth. All of these, to our certain knowledge, were delivered at Carfax. Recently, 12 of these boxes have been removed. First step, ascertain whether all the rest remain in the deserted house next door or whether any more have been removed. We must trace each of these boxes and sterilize the earth with holy water so that he can no longer seek safety in it. And we must hurry.
The events of the next few days are described in Jonathan Harker's journal.
October 2nd, 5 a.m. Just returned from the empty house. Left Mina here at home. Well, we've done our work at Carfax. The place was filthy. The air stagnant and foul and alive with rats. We counted the boxes. Only 38 of them. And over each one, the professor went through his same mysterious work. It was dawn when we got back. I found Mina asleep. She looks paler than usual.
October 2nd. Soon after they left, I fell asleep. I remember hearing the sudden barking of the dogs. And then there was silence. I got up and looked out of the window. There was a thin streak of white mist moving across the grass along the wall of the house. It dawned on me that the air in the room was heavy and dank and cold. The gaslight came only like a tiny red spark through the fog. I could see through my eyelids. The mist grew thicker and thicker. Then, as I looked, the spark divided and seemed to shine on me through the fog like two red eyes.
You shall be flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, blood of my blood.
October 2nd, 8 p.m. We're on the track. 12 boxes were delivered last week to an empty house at 347 Piccadilly.
My dear friends, until the sun sets tonight, Dracula must retain whatever form he now has. We have this day to hunt out all his lairs and sterilize them. Then he will have no place where he can move and hide. But we have only until sunset.
The house in Piccadilly was empty. At the one at Purfleet, the same sickening smell was in the air. On the table, we found a clothes brush, a brush, and a comb, and a basin. The latter containing dirty water, which was reddened as if with blood.
The boxes are back here. 8, 9, 10, 11.
Only 11.
There's a 12th box somewhere.
Gentlemen, it is after 6. The sun is setting. We've no time to lose. He will return at any moment. Open the boxes.
Quiet. Listen.
Here it is.
waste your bullets, gentlemen. You think you baffle me? You with your pale faces all in a row like sheep in a butcher's. You think you've left me without a place to rest. But I have more. And time is on my side. The one you love is mine already. I have known. Already my mark is on her throat. Flesh of my flesh. Blood of my blood. She is with me always. Over land or sea.
October 4th morning. Another meeting in the study of Turkey.
We must find that last remaining box, gentlemen. We must find it. As long as that earth exists impure, as long as there remains one place of refuge for Dracula, there is no safety and no peace for any soul in England.
And for the undead, never peace so long as he lives. Blood of my blood. Blood of my blood.
Mina! How do you know that? Quiet.
With me. With me always. Over land and sea.
Mina, darling, how did you know that Dracula said those...
I don't know. The words just came. Strange. There are times when somehow I feel that I'm with him.
At sunset?
Yes. Just at sunset. And again at sunrise. Dr. Van Helsing, if that time you...
Have you the courage?
Courage for what? What do you mean?
Dr. Van Helsing here will question me.
I will question her, yes. In a state of hypnosis. The one you love is already mine, he said. She is with me always, over land or sea. Ah, Count Dracula. Perhaps she will betray you if she is really with you, this one we love. Who knows? If she is really with you over land or sea.
Blood of my blood.
Mina.
Yes.
Answer me, Mina. Are you with him?
Yes, I am with him.
Where are you?
I do not know. It is all dark.
What do you hear?
The lapping of water. I can hear it on the outside.
Then you are on a ship.
Yes.
What else do you hear?
There is the creaking of an anchor
What are you
chain.
doing?
Still. Oh, so still. It is like death. It's like death.
Here's a report from Matson Peabody, shipbrokers. Dated October 5th, according to Lloyd's list, the only sailing ship that left for the Black Sea yesterday was the Tsarina Katrina, bound for Varna. Some hours before she sailed, a man came alongside, all in black, driving a cart with a great box in it. This he lifted down single-handed and carried below. No one remembers having seen him after that, as heavy mist came up over Doolittle Dock until sailing time. The rest of London Harbour remained completely clear.
Our plans are made. The average sailing time from London to the Black Sea is 3 weeks. We can travel overland to the same place in 3 days. We shall be there waiting for him when he arrives.
October 15th, arrive Varna about 5 o'clock. Mina seems stronger. Every morning before sunrise and just before sunset, she speaks to Van Helsing in a trance.
Are you with him, Mina? Tell me, are you with him?
I am with him.
What can you see?
Nothing. All is dark.
What can you hear?
I can hear the waves lapping against the ship and the water rushing by. The wind is high. I can hear it in the shrouds and the bow throws back the foam.
So, the Tsarina Katrina is still at sea, hastening on her way to Varna. The Count cannot cross running water, so he cannot leave the ship without being observed.
What do you hear, Mina?
Lapping waves and rushing water. Darkness.
sake of waiting. Daily telegrams from Lloyd's.
Not yet reported. Not yet reported.
Rushing water and creaking mud. Darkness. Darkness and wind.
October 24th. Telegram. Lloyd's, London to Harker. Sarina Katrina reported this morning. From Dardanelles. Lloyd's, London to Harker, October 28th.
Zarina Katrina in heavy fog reported entering Galatz Harbor at 1 o'clock today.
Galatz is 38 hours from here, and the first train for Galatz leaves at 6:30 tomorrow morning. My friends, we have lost.
I can see nothing. I can hear men's voices calling and the roll and creak of oars in the house. I can feel the air blowing upon me.
October 29th, evening. We are due between 2 and 3 in the morning, but already at Bucharest we are 3 hours late. Saw Captain Zarina Katrina.
A man come aboard with an order an hour before sunup to receive a box for a party by the name of Dracula. That is Pepper's. I read Emmanuel Hildesheim, his name was.
Mr. Hildesheim?
Yes.
You went over to the box yesterday.
I gave it to Kyloff by order. Kyloff.
Mr. Kyloff?
I know. This morning they find him dead inside the churchyard of St. Peter. They find him dead with his throat torn open.
October 30th evening.
There are 2 ways in which Dracula can get back to his own place. By land or by water.
We've examined the map and find the most likely river is the Sereth. You and I, Seaward, will charter a steam launch and follow him up the river. Van Helsing and Mina will take the train to Veresti, and from there they will go...
From there we shall go in the track where Harker went, from Bistritz over to Borgo. If you have not caught him before, we shall be awaiting Dracula there.
October 31st. We arrived at Veresti at noon, Van Helsing and I. Got a carriage here, and we start in an hour. Our enemy is still on the river.
October 31st. We can run at good speed up the river at night. There's plenty of water, and the banks are wide apart.
November 1st, evening. No news all day. We hear that a big boat went up the river before us, going at more than usual speed.
November 4th. All day driving. The country gets wilder as we go. By morning we shall reach the Borgo Pass.
November the 4th, evening. We've left the launch. We've got horses, and we follow on the track along the river. We are armed.
Look! Quick! There they are now! Heading west!
With the dawn, we could see the Slovaks some miles before us, dashing along the river with their wagon. On it is the great box.
Afternoon, we reached the Borgo Pass.
Van Helsing! Look!
We could see a long way all around us. Far off, beyond the white waste of snow, was the river like a black ribbon curling. Between us and the river, not afar off, came a group of men, mounted Slovaks hurrying along. In the midst of them was a wagon which swept from side to side. On the wagon was a great box.
Look!
We see 2 horsemen following fast, coming up from the south. Stewart and Harker. The Slovaks with their heavy wagon are losing their ground. Now the horsemen are not more than a mile behind. Now the wagon is quite close to us. We can see the great box swaying crazily. Now they are almost upon us.
Now has happened a strange thing. The wagon smashed into a great rock bed in the snow, lost its front wheels, and turned over on its side, jammed against a stone. The horses tore loose from their traces and bolted, and the slowbucks scatter and vanish after them. Then silence. Silence like comes after ringing a bell.
Look, his face.
It is Dracula, sprawled out stiff and twisted in the smear of his own holy earth. The box, in falling, has emptied the dirt onto the snow. His face is old-looking. The skin is like paper. Dr. Seward, there's no time. Look at the sun.
Sunset.
In 1 minute there is darkness, and he is forever lost to us. Have you the stake of wood and the hammer?
Here.
Now, Seward, pray for us. Kneel down and pray. Harker, the stake of wood over his heart. Be not afraid, Harker. Do not look into his eyes. The hammer. Now, Harker, strike. Strike!
Flesh of my flesh. Guilt of my guilt. Death of my death. Speak and be manifest in the instant of your master's peril. Elements of darkness, rain, evil winds, mist, and mold, and tempest.
Right!
Somehow I can hear him speaking behind his eyes.
Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh, death of my death, dead and undead. The hand of the living is over your master. Console him, my children. This instant is no longer than the space between two heartbeats, but the night is not here, and I am lonely. Come to your master, my children. Beguile him now in the instant of his peril. Beguile him with the sound of your names. Claw, wing, tooth, scale, tissue of flesh.
Strike, Harker, strike!
There is one very dear to me who has not answered. My love, Mina. There is less than a minute between me and the night. You must speak for me. You must speak with my heart.
Give them to me! Jonathan, give them to me! The stake of wood and the hammer!
I shall never forget that moment. The look on poor Mina's face as she stood there, the angry scars standing out on her throat, her eyes like living coals in the last red of the sunset. She had torn the stake and the hammer out of my hands with the strength of an animal.
Mina, do you know what you've done, woman? You know what you've done to us? You've released him, the evilest beast. Look!
The sun! As we looked down at Dracula, the eyes saw the sinking sun, and the hate in them turned to triumph.
Flesh of my flesh. Come to me, my love. Come into the night and the darkness. You have served me well. My love. My bride.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the evidence in this case is now before you. I've added nothing. And to the best of my knowledge, I've omitted nothing that might help to throw light on the extraordinary events of the year 1891, which culminated on that terrible evening in the Borgo Pass. There remains only this one last report.
When Mina Harker seized the stake and hammer from her husband, I believe she was under some form of hypnosis. She herself remembers nothing. But whatever influence was at work on her, she must, at the last moment, have rejected it. For at the exact instant the sun disappeared, it was Mina Harker who drove the stake through the heart of the thing that called itself Dracula. At that same instant, even as we looked, the wound on the side of her throat was no more. As for Dracula, before the scream of the creature had died from our ears, the whole body crumbled into dust and passed from our sight. In the final moment of dissolution, there was in the face a look of peace, such as I never could have imagined might have rested there.
Tonight's production of Dracula by Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater was the first of 9 CBS broadcasts in which this brilliant group will bring to life a series of great narratives, all presented in the immediacy of the first-person singular. In presenting them each Monday evening at this time during the summer season, the Columbia Network is bringing a complete theatrical producing company to the air for the first time. In the cast tonight, Dr. Van Helsing was played by Martin Gable, Jonathan Harker by George Coulouris, Dr. Seward by Orson Welles, the Russian captain by Ray Collins, the mate by Carl Swenson, Mina Harker by Agnes Moorehead, Lucy Westenra by Elizabeth Farrer, and Count Dracula by Orson Welles. Bernard Herrmann composed the original music and conducted. Dan Seymour speaking. Davidson Taylor supervised the production for the Columbia Network. And now here is the director to tell you about next week's Mercury Theater production, Mr. Orson Welles.
Ladies and gentlemen, what are your favorite stories? If there is one you're particularly fond of and would like to hear on the air, will you please write me about it? Next week, the Mercury Theater is going to tell you Robert Louis Stevenson's exciting yarn about pirates and the sea, Treasure Island. Until then, just in case Count Dracula has left you a little apprehensive, one word of comfort. When you go to bed tonight, don't worry. Put out the lights and go to sleep. It's all right. You can rest peacefully. That's just a sound effect. There. Over there in the shadow, see? It's nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. I think it's nothing. But always remember, ladies and gentlemen, there are werewolves. There are vampires. Such things do exist.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Presenting Orson Welles as the Third Man. The Lives of Harry Lime. The fabulous stories of the immortal character, originally created in the motion picture The Third Man, with zither music by Anton Karas.
That was the shot that killed Harry Lime. He died in a sewer beneath Vienna. As those of you know who saw the movie The Third Man. Yes, that was the end of Harry Lime. But it was not the beginning. Harry Lime had many lives. And I can recount all of them. How do I know? It's very simple. Because my name is Harry Lime.
Don't get me wrong, I love Budapest. From Budapest come goulashes and shardashes. Shardashes being something you dance and goulash being something you eat if you go for all that paprika. Me, I love it. So, when I got that telegram, I took the first train to Hungary. Maybe I'd better tell you about the telegram first. Dear Mr. Lyne, it said, my bank is going to be robbed and I need your help. It was signed Fekete, evidently a man's name, nobody I knew. I knew all about bank robberies, however, and I was dying to help. Besides, as I say, I love paprika. So I started packing right away.
And now, Orson Welles as Harry Lime, the third man, in today's story, Too Many Crooks.
Before calling at the bank, I started a cute little flower shop I happened to notice across the way. Good morning. Would you give me something for my buttonhole? Well, Lily. Lily, what are you doing here?
We have some very pretty pink gardenias.
Oh, come on, Lily, don't tell me you don't remember me. And how are all the Corellis?
The who?
Don't give me that, Lily.
My name is Lulu.
Well, it used to be Lily, and you used to be a blonde. And the Corellis, as you know perfectly well, because you used to work for them, are the best bank robbers in Central Europe. Well, what about it, honey?
Here are your gardenias, Harry. Now get out of here.
Okay, honey, okay. No need to get in a hassle.
I'm telling you, Harry, get out.
I never was one to argue, so I took my gardenia across the street and wore it into the bank.
Mr. Fekete will see Mr. Harry Lime.
You can go in now, Mr. Lime.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Fekete will see you.
Yes, that's what I gathered.
This way, please. And,
thank you.
Oh, Mr. Lime,
Yes.
will you please extinguish your cigarette? Mr. Fekete does not approve of smoking.
Thanks, I'll bear that in mind.
Mr. Lime.
Come in and shut the door. There's a break.
Do you mind if I sit down, Mr. Fekete, or is there a rule against that?
Sit down. You're a very impertinent young man, but I don't mind that. I'm an impertinent older man. We ought to get along together very nicely.
What's your proposition, Mr. Fekete?
Yeah. What do you mean?
That's what I said. What's your proposition?
Listen to me, Lime. I don't make propositions. I consider them.
Have it your own way, Fekete. I'm a big boy now, and I'm not so easily impressed.
What do you mean, impressed?
All this big desk, double secretary, Mr. Fekete. You'll see you now, Mr. Fekete doesn't approve of smoking, busy executive hoopla. May go down very well with the bumpkins who give you their money to invest. It doesn't mean a thing to me. You sent for me, didn't you? I crossed 3 national borders to get here and lost a lot of time, so don't ask me what's my proposition. What's yours, Mr. Fekete?
Very good indeed. You're just the man I hoped you were. Have a cigar.
Wouldn't that be breaking the rules?
I make the rules, Mr. Lime, and I don't like cheap tobacco smoke. Now, do I enjoy being forced to distribute these very costly, custom-made Havanas to every, what is it you call them, bumpkin, who comes into my office? I think you'll enjoy these.
Thanks.
Right?
Thanks.
Good. Now that we're a little more at ease, suppose you tell me something about yourself.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
I wish you'd stop asking me what I mean by everything I say, Fekete. I said why, and I meant why. You put private detectives on my trail. You found me. You made me a very substantial down payment on services to be rendered. And now, when I get here, you want me to tell you about myself. That's just plain silly, old man. It's obvious that if you went to all that trouble and expense to get me here, you knew about me already. I'm the one to ask the questions, not you.
Better and better. Mr. Lime, if you were just a little less notorious as a cook, I'd offer you a vice presidency in my bank.
I forgive the insult, Mr. Fekete.
What do you mean, insult?
You go asking what I mean again. I meant insult.
Now, don't you get pompous on me, Lime. You are a crook, a well-famous one. You don't want to deny that?
What I don't want is very simple, Mr. Fekete. I don't want to be a vice president of your bank.
Oh? Oh, I follow you now. Don't worry, Lime.
Right.
I promised you $20,000.
That's right.
Or its equivalent in Hungarian pesos.
No, wait a minute.
And you'll get it without having to serve as an officer of this
You
bank.
promised me $20,000, old man. There weren't any gimmicks in the agreement about the joke money you folks pass off on each other locally. I know. I carry my own microscope for reading the fine type.
Very well, very well. $20,000 it is. Don't you want to know what I expect you to do for it?
Mr. Feckerty, you keep making me repeat myself. I told you before that I'm a big boy now. If you're giving me $20,000, I can relax, not worry about asking you silly questions. You're going to get around eventually to telling me what you expect me to do for it.
Did you ever hear of a bank giving a reward?
Yes, but only after a bank robbery.
Exactly. Exactly. Only after a bank has been robbed. I'm reversing the procedure line. I'm giving the reward first.
Oh, so that's the little caper, is it? You want me to rob your bank for you?
Oh, not at all, not at all. A reward is usually given for apprehending the thieves who have robbed the bank. What I want you to do, Harry, I may call you Harry?
Certainly, old man. Call me Harry if it gives you any fun.
Well, Harry, what I want you to do is to apprehend the robbers before the robbery is committed. Very clever, don't you think so? Have another cigar.
In my business, I may get in the way of an awful lot of screwy deals, but I can tell you that never in a long career have I been offered in complete seriousness a loopier proposition than Mr. Feckerty's. Seems the key to the whole affair was Mr. Feckerty's junior officer in the bank, a certain Mr. Fodor.
Ladislaus Fodor is the full name, Harry. He's one of our vice presidents.
I see.
I tell you this right now, the man is an unprincipled criminal.
Oh?
And come here, and I'll show him to you. Come this way. You can see him through the glass panel.
Yes.
There he is.
Oh, that one.
Second desk to the right. There. With all those silly hairs pasted over his bald head. That's the man.
He doesn't look very dangerous to me.
Fodor? Dangerous? He is the brain of a backward bird and the charm of a worm. Now that I look back on it, I can't imagine how I ever persuaded myself to be jealous of him.
Jealous? I don't follow you, old man.
If I have a fault, Harry, it is this. I do tend to be jealous. Lulu often chides me about it, and I have promised to curb the instinct, but there, it is a part of my character.
Lulu? You mean the girl in the flower shop across the way, that Lulu?
She is the only Lulu I know, Mr. Lyon. How does it happen that you are acquainted with her?
You see this carnation?
I see it, yes.
Lulu sold it to me, overcharged me, scandalously, as a matter of fact.
Well, Lulu is a working girl. She must live. How does it happen you know her?
What makes you think I do?
You know her name?
Oh, one of the other customers called her that while I was still in the shop. As it happens, it was this little fellow you just pointed out to me over there, the vice president, Fodor.
Third vice president.
I hate to keep harping on these commercial matters, Feckerty, old man, but just how does my $20,000 reward come into the picture?
Let us retire to my inner office, Harry. I never tell you.
Okay,
Come.
old man.
Sit down, please, Harry. Have another cigar.
My pockets are bulging with cigars now, old man. Let's concentrate on the $20,000.
Certainly, certainly. Oh, Miss Carver. Miss Carver.
Yes, Mr. Feckerty?
No matter who calls, don't disturb me. Not on any account. I'm having an important conference.
Yes, Mr. Feckerty.
Oh, jealousy, Harry. Jealousy is a terrible
Yes,
thing.
yes, certainly is. Now, about this reward.
Jealousy is the green-eyed monster who doth mock the meat it feeds on. That's how the poet Shakespeare expresses
the
it.
poet Shakespeare said a mouthful, and now...
But still, if it had not been for jealousy, I would never have followed this Fodor into Lulu's shop. And if I hadn't done that, I would never have discovered the digging.
Digging? What digging?
What would you say, Harry, if I were to tell you that running under the street from Lulu's flower shop to this bank, there is a tunnel?
A tunnel?
What would you say if I told you that?
Well, I'd say, well, what do you know? That's what I'd say.
That's what I said when I found out about it. And that's why I say now that I mustn't ever forget to be grateful to jealousy. Particularly since I've discovered that there's nothing between Lolo and Fodor. Or nothing serious.
And do you know what I'd say to that?
No.
A couple of rude words.
Yeah, but why?
Why? You find them scrabbling away together like a couple of chubby moles, digging away in the general direction of your bank vault, and you say there's nothing serious between them?
There isn't, I'm sure of that. I have Lulu's word. And besides, what could she possibly see in a fat little nonentity like Fodor? No, the only one who thinks it's serious is Fodor. And that's the whole point. Fodor is a dupe, a mere cat's paw in the conspiracy.
Oh, yes? And who's the mastermind?
I am.
And what does Fodor think about that?
He languishes in ignorance. He knows nothing. And to think that he aspires, he dares to aspire to my position in the bank.
How does Lulu fit in?
I must tell you that Lulu has given me some reason to hope that she will someday make me the happiest man in the world.
And how would she do that? By giving up Fodor or sending you a big bouquet of roses? Let's get down to cases, old man. Wedding bells can ring out from Budapest to back again, but I won't be there to throw any rice unless I get paid. What is it exactly you want from me? Lessons on how to help Fodor and Lulu rob your bank?
Fodor's going to do the robbing, and besides, it isn't my bank. I'm only a salary
And
officer.
then Fodor gives you the money to give to Lulu. Is that it?
Certainly not. That would be silly.
That's just what I was thinking.
No. Every day, Fodor is supposed to take the paper money from the various cages and place it in the vault.
Yeah?
This is his responsibility.
Yeah.
Tonight, however, he will not do this. He will leave the money outside the vault, hidden in a large filing cabinet. Oh, the entire plan has been carefully worked out, I can assure you.
All I can say is this Fodor of yours is a very cooperative type of cat's boy.
Don't call him this Fodor of yours. He isn't. He's no Fodor of mine.
Have it your own way, old man. What comes next? You, I suppose, huh? You come a half hour later with a dark lantern and a gunny sack. You wrap up the money, join Lulu, who's been waiting for you across the street in the flower shop, and the two of you, hand in hand, move off down the road into the sunrise and also into the very choicest Hungarian houska.
What is a houska?
A jail or prison, a place of forcible incarceration, a lockup for bad little bank robbers.
Not at all, not at all. It is Fodor who goes to prison.
Oh, yes? And how do you work that?
That is one of the things I want you to arrange.
Oh, I see. I'm going to have to earn in that $20,000. I think we'll start by having it deposited in my name and in somebody else's bank, old man.
Why now? And why another bank?
Well, every bank in Budapest isn't going to be robbed tonight, so I think I'd prefer one of the others. And I'll take it now because I know you wouldn't want me to go to the police with what is, after all, a fairly sordid little story.
Police, but that's blackmail.
Oh, watch your language, old man. Blackmail's a nasty word. You know, all I want is protection from my poor little $20,000. I'll give you service for it, too, but I want to be absolutely positive that you're ready to meet your payroll.
Very well. You'll have your money, but you will help me.
I'm going to need a few more solid facts, old man.
Well, it all began with this insane jealousy of mine for Fodor.
Oh, yeah?
I took to following him. He used to go into Lulu's flower shop at night long after it was closed. And one time he left the shutter unfastened and I went in. There were no lights in the shop itself, but I could hear voices from the basement below. I opened the trap door very carefully so as not to be heard. And what do you think I saw?
You saw Lulu, Fodor, and three men all hard at work digging a tunnel.
Yeah. How did you know?
I didn't, I guess. After all, you told me there was a tunnel.
But the three men, how did you know about them?
Still guessing. It's pretty obvious that Mr. Fodor and Lulu couldn't dig much of a hole without getting some help. Tell me this. It was Lulu who persuaded you to call me in on this deal, wasn't it?
How did you know that?
Still just guessing, old man, just guessing. Now, let me guess on for a minute and stop me when I'm wrong. When you saw what Lulu and Fodor were doing, you went home and brooded for a while, and a few days afterwards you confronted her.
It was the next day.
Oh, okay, it was the next day. And Lulu admitted she was planning to rob the bank, but said she was just using Fodor, and you were the only one she really cared about. And if you joined the party, it's you she'd run off with, leaving Mr. Fodor holding the bag. An empty bag. How am I doing?
Oh, you're a clever man.
Sure I am. That's why Lulu had you send for me.
You see, the idea is that Fodor will hide the money outside the vault and leave. Then, according to the arrangement, as he understands it, Lulu will come through the tunnel at night with her helpers and take the money back under the street through the tunnel.
Who did she tell Fodor these helpers were?
She said one of them is her brother and the other two are cousins.
And what did she tell you?
That's what she told me. Why?
Nothing, old man. Nothing at all. Just give me one more guess,
Oh, go ahead.
After Fodor leaves the money, what you do is crawl back through the tunnel with a sack of currency clenched in your teeth. But no, that wouldn't make any sense, would it? You'd run into a couple of brothers crawling in the opposite direction.
I'm not to have anything to do with the tunnel. You see, Fodor leaves the money out just before closing time. That way, he's implicated, and we have a scapegoat. So there's nothing to stop me from letting myself in with my key at night and walking away with the money. Who could suspect me? It's a perfect crime, Harry. Wouldn't you say so?
Yes, it's quite a crime if you look at it in one way. But tell me about the brothers. What are they supposed to think about all this?
Oh, they don't know about it. Lulu hasn't told them.
But the news will reach them eventually, and what then?
They must be implicated somehow, along with Fodor. But I must be protected, and Lulu. That's what you're here for, Harry. Have another cigar.
Orson Welles returns in just a moment as the third man. And now, Orson Welles, as the third man, continues with today's story, Too Many Crooks.
Naturally, the first thing I did after making my farewells to Mr. Feckerty was to go across the street and pay a call on Lulu.
Harry,
Yeah?
listen to me carefully.
I'm listening, honey.
There's a little cafe on the hill above the old city. Do you know the place? There's a gold rooster on the roof.
Well, what about it?
Go there and wait for me. You never can tell when Fodor Feckerty will be bursting in here. They keep jumping across the street to check up on each other and buying geraniums. Go to the cafe and I'll be with you as soon as I can close up
What
here.
about the boys below?
Oh, what do you mean?
The construction crew, the Corellis.
Oh, Feckerty told you about the Corellis?
I would have found out anyway, Lily.
Lulu.
Okay, what happens to them if you shut up the store? Isn't there a way out?
No, but they won't be finished work before I'm back. And besides, what they don't know won't hurt them.
Lily, or rather Lulu, it looks to me as though just about everybody around here is due to be hurt by what they don't know. I found the Gold Rooster and sat down on the terrace of the restaurant to wait for Mr. Feckerty's fiancée. Over a glass of Tokay, I tried to add up the situation as of then. As far as I could see, the whole setup was like a Picasso painting. No matter how you looked at it, it was cockeyed and upside down.
Hello, Harry. Don't want anything for
Hi.
me. I haven't time.
Don't worry, Lily. I'm not here to celebrate. We can have our party after I know who's going to pay the check.
I wish you'd call me Lulu.
Okay, Lulu. Now, here's all the sense I can make out of this little caper. You came here with a Corelli gang,
No,
right?
they came first. Then they sent for me to work in the flower shop for a front. The tunnel was their idea.
Then you sent for me. That was your idea.
Right.
Fodor thinks he's going to divvy up with the Corellis and marry you on the proceeds.
Something like
And
that.
Feckerty thinks something like the same something. The president thinks he's going to put it over the vice president. What about the construction crew?
You mean Walter and the
Yes,
others?
the Corellis, the original burglars. What are they going to get out of this? According to Feckerty, it's going to be the old double-cross, but if I know you, Feckerty's in for the same gentle treatment.
Harry, why should anybody get anything out of this except...
Okay, Larry, okay. Book a couple of spaces for us on the first milk train out of Budapest, but be sure to get reservations on the bulletproof car.
I wish you'd call me Lulu.
Time marches on. A lot of trusting Hungarian depositors line up at the bank, leave their hard-earned pengos at the impressive-looking gilt cages for what they fondly believe is safekeeping, and hurry home to have their evening plate of goulash. Closing time comes and goes. Feckerty doesn't leave. He just pretends to, and stays skulking in his office. Meanwhile, Fodor takes the big packages of pengos, which, as you know, is Hungarian for money, dutifully to the door of the vault. He slams the vault loudly, this being for the benefit of the janitor, who is deaf anyway and doesn't hear, and quickly stows the loot in the empty filing cabinet which he has thoughtfully left nearby for just this purpose. He then goes home and passes a very restless night. The moon rises over the city and winks at its own reflection in the Danube. A lot of good Hungarians are in their beds. The others are all in a nightclub called the Arizona, dancing the Shardash. They do not come into this story, so we'll leave them dancing. Down onto the street, the Corellis, those adept bank robbers, continue to dig. They are putting the finishing touches on their tunnel, and we will not listen in on them because their conversation is very vulgar indeed. In his luxurious office, Mr. Feckerty sits biting his nails and dreaming of a long West Indian cruise with Lulu in an adjoining deck chair. As the gang in the tunnel understand it, when the clock strikes 12, they are to open the secret trap door which they have previously prepared inside the bank, a section of tiling near the vault, go to the filing cabinet and take out the money which Porter has left there, thus eliminating the noise and inconvenience of breaking into the vault, and, first closing the loose tile after themselves, scuttle back with the loot under the street into the flower shop, out into the night, and as far away from Hungary as possible. As I say, that's the way the gang in the tunnel understand it. This is also the arrangement as Mr. Fodor understands it, with a trifling difference, that he expects Lulu to stop by for him with his share of the profits. Like Mr. Feckerty, he is biting his nails and dreaming of tropical cruises. And what of Lulu? What of Lulu, indeed? It is Lulu's little plan to foozle everybody, Corelli, Fodor, and Fekete. She's led them all on to just this point. It is the point of departure. Lulu's departure. Lulu and all those neatly wrapped packages of pingos. The trouble is, it's all just a little bit too much for one little girl to handle alone, so Harry Lime's been sent for. Harry is supposed to assist at the general foozling of one and all, and then, in due time, of course, he's to be foozled as well. Lulu will send Harry off to mail a postcard, and when he gets back, Lulu will have continued her travels alone, with nothing to keep her company but the loot. That, as I say, is the way Lulu understands it. The clock, high in the steeple of San Stefano, strikes 12. This is the signal. Mr. Corelli, that celebrated expert, with his 2 able assistants, starts toward the bank. The tunnel was not built for comfort, and the going on hands and feet is a trifle rough. There's a bit of genteel cursing, but hearts are high. At the sound of the clock, Mr. Fekete removes the bound bundles of money from their place of safety and checks once again the bolts and fastenings which keep the loose tile in its place. In the darkness, Mr. Fekete smiles. He is satisfied that, contrary to the Corelli's expectations, the bank end of the tunnel is firmly and irrevocably closed. Still smiling, he starts toting the money toward the side door for which he, Mr. Fekete, is the perfectly legal possessor of a key. On the outside, Lulu, with a high-speed car, is supposed to be waiting for him. Unfortunately, however, a moment earlier, Harry Lime, on the flower shop end of the tunnel, has persuaded Lulu to go down for a moment and tell the boys not to try lifting that trick tile for at least a half hour. Lulu hates herself now for not having analyzed the merits of this suggestion. She has plenty of time now to think this over because foxy old Harry in the flower shop has bolted down the trap door. The clock has stopped striking, of course, and Mr. Fekete pops out of his bank looking for all the world like a jolly Christmas shopper with his arms loaded with bundles. There is a high-speed car waiting for Mr. Fekete, all right, but it is full of strange gentlemen, and they are all dressed in uniforms.
Put up your hands, Fekete. Put up your hands. You're under arrest.
But there's some mistake.
Oh, not at all, old man. No mistake at all. You see, gentlemen, just as you were told, there he is, and there's the money.
Come along now, Fekete. We are taking you in.
You, Harry, a police informant.
Not a bit of it, old man. I wouldn't dream of telling on you. No, the cops got the tip-off from an anonymous letter, and you know how you spell anonymous? L-U-L-U.
Lulu. She did it.
Lulu. That wouldn't be Lulu Hartz, would it? Alias Lily the Twister.
Yes, officer, I believe so. There's a reward offered for her capture, isn't there?
I should say there is.
What about the Corelli gang?
They've got the biggest price on their heads in Central Europe.
Oh, that's lovely. It's all beginning to add up. When you throw in the generous reward Mr. Fekete posted in the name of his bank this afternoon...
But you're not going to collect that, are you?
Why not, old man? After all, you put up the money for me to collect before the bank was robbed, didn't you? You also wanted me to thwart the Corellis, and if you yourself are foolish enough to go breaking the law, you'll just have to tell it to the judge.
I'll tell him plenty. I'll tell him about you.
Go ahead. I haven't broken any laws, remember, and you'll only help me collect my various rewards.
Matter of fact, Lime, just what is your connection with this affair? What have you done?
Officer, all I did was turn a bolt on a trap door. Nothing at all, really, just a twist to the wrist. And now, if you've got some spare handcuffs ready, I think we better open it up again. The folks down below may be getting a little fretful, and I think they'll appreciate a change of scene. If you'll come with me, officer, I'll show you the place.
Really, Mr. Lime, I can't tell you how grateful...
Please, old man, don't mention it. Pleasure, I assure you. Won't you have a cigar?
Harry Lime returns in just a moment. And now, Harry Lime.
You know, friends, I had thought of substituting those fat packages of pengos for the same weight of old newspapers. But the rate of exchange wasn't so good on the pengo just then, so I resisted the temptation. After all, as Mother always said, too many crooks spoil the goulash.
J-E-L-L-O. The Jell-O program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Dennis Day, and yours truly, Don Wilson. The orchestra opens the program with Night After Night. Everything from soup to Jell-O. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the best way I know to describe a really complete meal. For Jell-O adds to any table that grand final touch of pleasure and perfection. Its rich glowing color is a tempting invitation to pick up that spoon and start right in on this swell, inviting dessert. And just to taste it is to know the ultimate in good things to eat. Yes, there's nothing more attractive than a bright, shimmering mold of delicious Jell-O. And there's certainly nothing more delightful than Jell-O's rare, distinctive flavor, as enticing and refreshing as the juicy, ripe fruit itself. So, friends, make the next meal really complete by topping it off with a top-notch Jell-O dessert made with any of Jell-O's 6 delicious flavors. Ask your grocer for several packages of Jell-O tomorrow. And when you buy, look for those big red letters on the box. They spell Jell-O, and Jell-O spells a treat. That was Night After Night, played by the orchestra. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you our master of ceremonies, a man
Hold
who...
it, Don, hold it. Just a minute. Jack isn't here yet.
Well, where is he?
Well, he's out in the hall talking to Orson Welles on the telephone.
You mean Orson Welles, the famous actor?
Yeah.
What's he talking to him about?
Well, it's a long story. Jack is still burned up because he didn't win the Academy Award this year. So from now on, he's going in for heavy dramatic stuff. And right now, he's trying to get Orson Welles to coach him. Ain't that a Lulu?
But, gee, Mr. Benny's a comedian. What does he want dramatic lessons for?
That's what I say. He ought to stick to them big shoes and baggy pants. I better go out in the hall and get him, though.
Yeah, tell him to make it snappy. We're on the air.
Okay.
Yes, I understand, Orson. Yes. Yes. Quite. Oh, but definitely. Very well, Orson. I shall be expecting you within the hour.
Hey, Jackson, we're waiting for you.
I'll be there in a minute, Phil, old boy. By the way, Orson, shall I send my car for you, or will you take a cab? Oh, very well. I shall be looking forward to your visit. Thanks very much. Goodbye. Well, that's that.
Hey, kind of putting on the dog there, wasn't you?
Phil, don't say wasn't you. Hurts my ears.
Well, get a load of him. He talks to Orson Welles for 2 minutes, and my English ain't good enough for him.
And don't say ain't. Heaven.
Oh, stop with that highbrow stuff. What are you trying to do, make me feel subconscious?
That's self-conscious. And listen, Phil, when Orson Welles gets here, will you do me a favor and talk just with your hands? I'll tell him you've got laryngitis or something. Come on, let's go inside.
Yes, let's join the others. Hip, hip.
Gee, you're funny. You know, Phil, it's amazing that you haven't got your own program.
Well, I may have one of these days. I often dream about my own show.
Oh, you do? Well, maybe I can arrange for the Sandman to tear up your option. Come on, subconscious. Oh, hello, Dennis.
Hello, Mr. Benny.
Hello, Don. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, that's all right, Jack. Shall I go ahead now with your introduction?
No, don't bother. Let it go tonight.
Well, no build-up for the star, huh?
It isn't necessary, Phil. I think I'm fairly well known, don't you?
You're darn tootin'. Everybody knows you, Mr. Benny. Why, your name is famous from coast to coast.
Well, thanks, Dennis.
That kid will work next year.
That's not flattery, Phil. I've been in show business for a long time, and naturally, my name has become more or less familiar.
Well, let me tell you something, Jackson. When I go out on the road with my band, I hit a lot of towns where they've never even heard of you.
No kidding.
That's a fact.
Well, Phil, in the kind of towns you play, you can get 8 to 1 that shoes are a passing fancy. You never played a town yet where you didn't have to get off a train and get on a bus, get off the bus and get on a horse, get off the horse and crawl through the brush. You've got the only band in the world with a folding bass drum. Say, Don.
Yes, Jack?
I meant to tell you, I just spoke to Orson Welles on the phone. He's coming over in a little while.
Well, Phil mentioned something about it. He said that you wanted Mr. Welles to coach you in dramatics.
Yes, and he has consented to help me out.
Gee, Mr. Benny, you're a swell actor now. You don't need any coaching.
Yes, I do, Dennis.
That's right.
Don't change your mind so fast. You know, Don, I've been doing comedy for a long time in radio and pictures, and, I don't know, comedy is all right in a way, but I've decided to go in for deeper things. Now, Dennis.
Yes, please?
Mr. Welles will be here pretty soon, so I think you ought to get your song over with. Have you got something ready?
Yes, Mr. Benny. This being St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to sing a real old Irish folk song called Fill the Fluter's Ball.
Well, that's very apropos. Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay.
Hey, Jack, I forgot to ask you, how's Mary getting along?
Mary, she's much better, Don, but she'll have to stay in bed a couple more days.
Well, I'm glad she's improving.
Hey, what's the matter with Mary?
Oh, she had a bad... Dennis, you can close your mouth. We're going to talk for a while.
Okay.
She had a bad cold, Phil. I think it was a touch of the flu, but she's getting along fine.
Has Mary got a nurse?
Yes, Phil, and she's gorgeous.
Well, all right.
And her husband, who was 6'4" and could break you right in two, isn't bad looking either. Sing, Dennis. I think there'll be no more interruptions.
Have you heard of Bill the Fluter of the town of Ballymuck? The times were going hard with him, in fact the man was rough. So he just sent out a notice to his neighbors one and all, as how he'd like their company that evening at a ball. And when writing out he was careful to suggest to them, if they found a hat of his convenient to the door, the more they put in. Whenever he requested them, the better would the music be for dancing on the floor. With the toot of the flute and the twiddle of the fiddle, oh, hopping in the middle like a heron on the griddle, oh. Down, hands around, crossing to the wall, oh, hadn't we the gaiety at Bill the Fluter's ball. Then little Mickey Mulligan got up to show them how, and then the widow Cafferty stepped out and makes her vow. I could dance you off your legs, says she, as sure as you were born. You'll only make the piper play if her hair was in the corn. So Phil plays up to the best of his ability. The lady and the gentleman begin to do their share. Stay flat and Nick, it's you that has agility. Begorra, Mrs. Cafferty, you're leaping like a hare. With the toot of the flute and the twiddle of the fiddle, oh, hopping in the middle like a heron on the griddle, oh. Up, down, hands around, crossing to the wall, oh, hadn't we the gaiety at Bill the Fluter's ball. Then Bill the Fluter tipped to wink a little crooked pat. I think it's nearly time, says he, for passing round the hat. So Paddy passed the hat around, and looking mighty cute, says you've got to pay the piper when he tooters on the flute. Then all joined in with the greatest joviality, mothering the buckle and the shuffle and the cut. Jigs were dance of the very finest quality, but the widow beat the company at handling the foot. With the toot of the flute and the twiddle of the fiddle, oh, hopping in the middle like a heron on the griddle, oh. Up, down, hands around, crossing to the wall, oh, hadn't we the gaiety at Bill the Fluter's ball.
You hear that, doll? That was Phil the Fluter's Ball, sung by Dennis Day, a real Irishman. You know, Dennis, it's a funny thing, but you're the only Irishman I ever met that I can lick.
Don't be too sure about that, buddy.
I guess I picked the wrong day, folks. Say, I wonder what's keeping Orson. He ought to be here pretty soon.
Well, Jack, you must remember that Mr. Wells is a very busy man. Between his radio program and directing, producing, and acting in pictures, he has plenty to do.
Oh, I know. He has a heavy schedule.
In fact, I don't know how he ever finds time to come down here and help you out.
Well, you see, Don, he and I are old friends. We went to high school together.
High school together? Why, Orson Welles is only 24 years old.
Phil, he graduated from high school at the age of 5. Don't you read the magazine? Why, when he was 7, he played Uncle Tom, Simon Legree, Little Eva, and the cabin in Uncle Tom's Cabin. So don't tell me about Orson Welles.
Pretty smart youngster, huh?
Not only smart, Don, but he grew up so fast. Why, he used to wear diapers with cuffs on them. Oh, what a kid. Huh?
So he's going to coach you, eh, Mr. Benny?
Yes, Dennis, in dramatic art. And I'll tell you one thing, fellas. With his technique and my feeling for the finer things, who knows what results I can attain? Who knows where I can go?
If Mary was here, she'd have a suggestion.
No doubt. But I'm quite serious, Phil. Anyway, when Orson gets here... Oh, gosh, that must be him. Come in.
Pardon me, has Mr. Wells arrived yet?
No, not yet.
I'm his secretary, Miss Wentworth. If you don't mind, I'll wait for him.
Oh, no. Come right in.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Harris, will you please show Miss Wentworth to a chair?
Sure, park the chassis here, babe.
Phil, make yourself comfortable, Miss Wentworth. Now, as I was saying, fellas, when Mr. Wells gets here, I don't want any heckling. Just behave yourselves while we're rehearsing.
Well, what do you intend doing tonight, Jack? Goodbye, Mr. Chips?
Oh, no, Don. We're going to work up to that gradually. First, he's going to teach me dramatic delivery and enunciation and how to breathe. Isn't that right, Miss Wentworth?
I can hear you breathing way over here.
I mean correctly. You know, fellas, there's a way of breathing when you read lines that... Pardon me. Hello? Mr. Wells? Oh, he hasn't arrived yet, but I'll have him call you. Goodbye. Well...
Who was that, Mr. Benny?
It was... Oh, darn it, I was so excited I forgot to ask.
Well, you're a fine secretary.
You're the secretary, not me.
Well, then why did you answer the phone?
Because it's my phone, that's why. I forgot to ask the man's name, so what?
Mr. Wells won't like it.
Look, miss, don't worry about that. The party will probably call back again, and when they do, I'll... Come in?
Excuse me, is this Studio B?
Yes, sir.
I was to meet Mr. Wells here. I'm Mr. Stone, his secretary.
His secretary? Then who's Miss Wentworth?
She's his private secretary. I am right out in the open.
Well, come right in. Mr. Wells should be here any moment.
Thank you. How do you do, Miss Wentworth?
Good evening, Mr. Stone.
Gee, that Orson's a pretty busy guy, ain't he?
Phil, I warned you about saying ain't.
Oh, that's right. He's a pretty busy guy, am he not?
Just let it go, Phil. Now, Don, I wish that
Mr.
you and
Stone, here's
Dennis...
a script the Theater Guild sent from New York.
Thank you.
And by the way, there was a phone call from Mr. Wells, but Mr. Benny failed to get the name.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, I said I was excited, and I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Mr. Wells won't like it.
Nuts to Mr. Wells. Gee, you'd think I'd murdered somebody. Now, Don, as I was saying, if you and Dennis would be... Now what? Come in?
Pardon me, I'm looking for Studio B.
He isn't here yet. Have a seat.
Good morning, Mr. Wells.
Good evening, Mr. Wells.
Good evening, Mr. Wells. Oh, Orson! Orson, come right in. Well, I sure didn't know you there for a second. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it, Orson. I was wondering...
Mr. Stone, did Gabriel send in those sketches, the costumes, the picture? We'll be needing them soon, you know.
Yes, Mr. Wells. I received that script from the Theater Guild.
Good. Let me see it.
Here you are, sir.
Looks like a very interesting play.
Well.
However, to finish the second act, we'll need polishing.
Gee. Oh, Orson, before we get started, I'd like to have you meet some of the members.
Miss Wentworth, did you cable Mr. Miller about the American rights to his new production, the one that opened last week in London?
Yes, I did, Mr. Wells. And by the way, just before you arrived, a phone call came for you. But Mr. Benny didn't get the name.
Stool pigeon. I was excited, Orson.
That's all right, Jack, but watch those things in the future.
I will, yes. Now, Orson, before we get started, I'd like to have you meet the members of my cast. This is our announcer, Don Wilson.
How do you do, Mr. Wilson?
It's a pleasure, I'm sure.
And this is Dennis Day, our young tenor.
Mr. Day?
How do you do? Dennis, don't curtsy. He's so polite. And, yes, this is our orchestra leader, Phil Harris.
Good evening, Mr. Harris.
Hi, Orson. Still scaring people? Phil! Don't pay any attention to him, Orson. He's always like that.
Oh, I don't mind. He's rather amusing in his own barbaric way.
Barbaric, that's very good.
By the way, Jack, where's Miss Livingston?
Oh, Mary's home in bed, Orson. She has a rather heavy cold.
Oh, that's too bad. Has she got a nurse?
I checked on that, Bob. No soap. Oh, what coarse language, Orson. I don't know where he picks those things up.
No, just the same, he's a very interesting study. Don't you think?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think, yes. Now, Orson, I think we ought to get started with my rehearsal. Did you have anything in mind for the first lesson?
First lesson, I see. Benny. Oh, yes. You see, Jack, the reason you haven't gone as far dramatically as you feel you should is because you've been selecting the wrong vehicles.
I have?
Definitely. For instance, if your goal is the Academy Award, as you say it is, you should concentrate... Oh, pardon me, Jack. There's something I must do. Miss Wentworth.
Yes, Mr. Wells.
Take a telegram to Mayor LaGuardia, New York City.
Yes, sir.
You see, Jack, you should concentrate on the heavier and more legitimate type of drama.
I understand. Now, what would you suggest, Orson?
Dear Mayor LaGuardia. Received your telegram, and if I'm in New York on the 29th, we'll be only too happy to attend the banquet.
Well.
However, we'll let you know in plenty of time if I ain't coming.
Ain't? Why, Orson, you said ain't. Oh, Orson. I'm surprised.
Well, Jack, the use of the word ain't is sometimes permissible. You see, in this instance, by using ain't, I saved a word in a telegram.
Oh.
That's all, Miss Wentworth.
Yes, sir.
Now, Jack, where were we?
Well, you were about to suggest a proper vehicle for me.
Oh, yes. Now, the type of play that would offer you the greatest scope for emotional histrionics would be a literary classic, something like The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame? You mean Charles Lawton's part?
Exactly.
Well, gee, that would be swell.
Mr. Christian, come here.
How's that?
That's for Mutiny on the Bounty.
Oh.
Jack, you were pretty far away from Hunchback.
He was pretty far away from Lawton, too.
We don't need any comments from you, Phil. You're barbaric. Well, Orson, if The Hunchback is a play you feel I ought to do, let's try it out. I'm your obedient servant. Shall we get started?
Yes. Mr. Stone, did you bring the script of The Hunchback with you?
Here it is, Mr.
Good. Now, Jack, here's a scene that we can start out with, which I think will give...
Pardon me, Orson. Come in.
Excuse me, is Mr. Wells here?
Why, yes, he is.
It's your tailor, Mr. Wells.
Oh, come in, Max. You might as well measure me right now.
Okay, Mr. Wells. Mark this down, Sam.
Right. Now, Jack, I think we can take this scene where the King of France meets the gypsy dancing girl, Esmeralda. Now, let's glance at it a minute.
Next, 15 and a half. 15 and a half. Chest, 42. 42. Wait, 36. 36. Wait, 29. 29. Come on, Sam. Goodbye, Mr. Wells.
Gee.
Yes, I think this scene will be fine.
Well, I'll do my best, Orson. Now, do you
Oh,
think...
Miss Wentworth.
Yes, Mr. Wells.
Take a memo to the tailor. No cuffs on the diapers.
Now, Orson, as I was saying, do you think I ought to give my own interpretation of The Hunchback, or should I mimic Charles Lawton? In other words... Oh, darn it. Excuse me. Hello? What? What? London? London, England?
I think that's for me, Jack.
Gee, London.
Hello? Oh, hello, Miller. So nice of you to call. Yes. Yes, I've heard splendid comment on your London production. I'd like very much to do it.
Gee, all the way from London.
I understand, Miller, but the Theater Guild has sent me a script which I may have to do first.
Gee whiz, I never...
Yes.
Phil, you better play something. This may take all day.
Yes.
My goodness, what a busy man.
Now, here's the point, Miller. I'm committed to the Guild till May 30th. However, if you could arrange to hold the American rights...
Woodpecker song played by Phil Harris and his orchestra, accompanied by Orson Welles on the telephone. And Phil, I'm very glad to see... Phil, I'm very glad to see that you're not a hypocrite.
What do you mean, hypocrite?
I mean, your music was the same as always. You didn't play good just because we have a distinguished visitor. Well, Orson, shall we get started with The Hunchback of Notre Dame? I'm raring to go.
Oh, wait just a minute, Jack. Mr. Wells, I have an important message to deliver right now, and I wish you'd listen to it and give me your frank opinion.
I'd be glad to, Mr. Wilson.
Don, Orson is here to help me.
Well, this will just take a second, Jack.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, next time you're in the mood for attempting an appetizing dessert, go to your neighborhood grocer and ask him for a package of Jell-O. You will find it's not only economical and easy to make, but comes in 6 delicious flavors. So be sure to insist on genuine Jell-O and look for the big red letters on the box.
Wow.
How was that, Mr. Wells?
Very good, very good. But I wish there was some place you could bring elephants in there.
Elephants? What an imagination, huh? Well, let's get to me now, eh, Orson?
All right, Jack. I see you're ready to play the Hunchback. What did you do, stuff a pillow up your back?
No, that's my knapsack. I'm going to a scout meeting later. Say, Orson, I was just thinking, of course, I don't want to complain or anything, but as I remember in the picture, Quasimodo, the hunchback, had very little to say. In fact, all he did was grunt and groan, and it's not very dramatic, is it?
Well, that's where you're wrong, Jack. A groan or a grunt, if properly delivered, can convey as much emotion as a whole page of dialogue.
Well, perhaps you're right, although I never thought of it that way.
Now tell me, Jack, can you groan?
Groan?
You ought to hear him on payday.
Well, you're the only one I resent paying. Well, now that you've explained it, Orson, I think I can handle it all right.
Very good, then let's get started. Now, this particular scene calls for the King of France. I'll play that. Frollo, the King's High Justice. I'll play that, too. Quasimodo, the Hunchback.
That must be me.
Yes. And Esmeralda, the gypsy girl, Miss Wentworth. Would you care to help us out, please?
Delighted, Mr. Wells.
Now, Orson, I noticed in the script here that Quasimodo rings the bells in the tower of Notre Dame. Do you want me to ring them?
No, I'll handle the bells. Incidentally, Jack, at the finish of this particular scene, you have a very dramatic speech where you tell Esmeralda not to be afraid of you. It's really the high spot of the play.
Oh, well, I'll sure try and get it right, Orson.
All right, then let's proceed. We open first with Esmeralda and Frollo. Now, quiet, everybody.
Quiet, everybody. Mr. Wells is about to rehearse.
You have the first line, Miss Wentworth.
Yes, sir. Let me go. Don't touch me. You have the hands of the devil.
Wait, for such talk I could have you burned at the stake. I am the law.
Yes, the law that drives my people out of town.
You deserve it. You are thieves and swindlers. You are lazy and you live by magic, tricks, and sorcery.
But you don't know the gypsies.
I don't want to know them. I want to wipe them with fire and sword, every one of them.
How was that, Orson?
Just grown once, Jack.
Oh, the second one was an encore. Go ahead.
Now, at this point, King Louis XI of France enters the scene. Esmeralda speaks.
Oh, thank heaven, the king approaches. Maybe he will listen to me.
You will be heard. I will help you, my child.
Your Majesty.
But you must give me a good reason. They say you are a lot of thieves.
Oh, no, Your Majesty. Whenever we steal, it is because we are hungry. Help us, child. Please help us.
I will help you. You and your people will suffer no longer. Back to your people, my child, and tell them that their king will see that they have food and shelter, and that in the future they shall be unmolested.
For this, I went to bed early last night. Now, look, Orson.
Yes.
Orson, look. Orson, I don't know what's wrong. But I don't feel those groans. No, really, maybe I ain't breathing right.
Jack, don't say ain't. It's bad English.
Well, for heaven's sake, you said it.
That was in a telegram.
Oh, well, Miss Wentworth, take a wire to Mr. Wells. Dear Orson, I ain't breathing right. And another thing, Orson, when do I get to that long speech of mine?
It's right here at the top of the next page. Esmeralda speaks again. Continue, Miss Wentworth.
Oh, thank you, Your Majesty. My people will always be grateful.
Rest easy, my child. And now, goodbye.
Goodbye, sire. Oh, wait, Your Majesty. Who is this ugly, misshapen creature that is staring at me? I'm frightened.
That's your cue, Jack.
Oh, yes.
It is I, Quasimodo. Do not be terrified of me. I am not a man and not a beast. Yet I am human, too. I have a heart and it warms to others.
Hey, wait a minute, Orson. You're drowning out my boy.
Well, the script calls for bells.
I don't care. You don't have to ring them that loud, do you?
I'm sorry. Try your speech again. Oh, Mr. Stone. Will you ring the bells this time? I want to watch Mr. Benny. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Jack.
It is I, Quasimodo. Do not be terrified of me. I am not a man and not a beast. but more looked down upon
Hello?
than either.
Yes, he's here.
Yes,
you,
I
Mr.
am
Wells,
human,
you're
too.
calling.
Thank you.
I have a heart that wants to.
Hello, Harrington.
But people drive me off as though I were the
When do you
evil
think I'll
one
get those
because my
proofs of the
soul
book?
is in prison in
Now,
another
see here, you promised that
It
2 weeks
reaches,
ago.
the more painfully to all that is beautiful.
That is why I look at you. You are very beautiful. And when you cry for me inside, why not me inside? Now for crying out loud. How can I act with all this going on, for heaven's sake?
Oh, Mr. Wells, your suit is ready for a fitting.
Thank you, Max. I'll try it on here.
Oh, the heck with it. Play, Phil. What I go through for a career.
Folks, if you're looking for a swell dessert to serve for Easter dinner next Sunday, look no farther. Because here it is, the whole answer in a pastry shell, Jell-O Easter tarts, each one heaped to the brim with clear golden orange Jell-O and several sections of tender, juicy oranges. Yes, believe me, it's a glorious treat, and just as simple as it is satisfying. To make it, all you do is dissolve 1 package of orange Jell-O in 1 pint of hot water. Chill until slightly thickened. Divide 3 medium oranges into sections, drain them, and arrange in 8 baked tart shells. Fill the shells with Jell-O, chill, and then, if desired, garnish with whipped cream before serving. The result, ladies and gentlemen, is a truly marvelous dessert. So plan now to highlight next Sunday's dinner with one of the most delicious and intriguing treats you've ever tasted. Jell-O Easter tarts, a grand combination of plump, juicy oranges and rich, brilliant orange Jell-O.
This is the last number of the 24th program in the current Jell-O series, and we will be with you again next Sunday night at the same time. Say, Orson, I'm sorry I blew up the way I did, but I would like to become a dramatic actor.
Well, Jack, those things take time, but I'll tell you what. Come over to my show next Sunday. We're going to do June Moon, and there's a swell part in it for you.
Well, gee, I'll be glad to. Will I have to groan much?
No, Jack. There isn't a single groan in the entire play.
Oh, gosh, and just when I had it down pat. Good night, doll.
Broadcasting Company.